Good news, everyone! Talking Futurama is coming back for Talking Futurama Season 2, Part 2.
Fresher than a summer ham, this podcast comes every Friday. And if you sign up at the $5 level at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, you can hear each episode as it goes live.
That's right, sign up today at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons for $5 to hear Talking Futurama every Friday throughout the rest of 2020 and also all the previous episodes we've done so far.
So head over to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons now, or we're going to clamp you.
Shut up and take my money.
Cartoons from present and the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, where we change into digital champions to save the digital world. I am one of your hosts, your pleasantly drunken father, Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever who is here with me today.
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, and my DG Destiny starts today. Let me hear you say...
And who do we have on the line?
Did you see? Did you hear? Did you know what's coming? It's Devin Hofarth.
And today's episode is all about the short Digimon adventure.
In a few seconds, the doors will open for the best movie of all time, the Digimon movie.
Whoa. Is this like the
Angela
theaters?
Anaconda.
You'll learn, Bob.
No.
You'll learn.
Okay,
yes,
well, I know
yeah.
that's outlawed, Angela Anaconda. It's illegal now. But yes, so we're going to be talking about the short Digimon adventure, but this is a patron pick by our patron who's on the line right now. Hello.
Yes, it's good to be here again.
Yeah, folks got to hear you on our Dungeons & Dragons one, which was a ton of fun.
Oh, yeah, that was great.
That was secretly anime and an isekai as well, but this is a straight-up anime isekai, the Digimon series.
Sort of. This short in particular is more of a, little kid finds a pet monster type of show, but yeah, the show itself is an isekai.
And yeah, I guess, Devin, what is your history with Digimon and why pick this of all cartoons?
Oh, well, I mean, I grew up in the 90s, so obviously the big thing at the time was Pokemon. And obviously I was a huge fan of Pokemon, yada yada, but I would see advertisements for this new show on Fox Kids called Digimon. And at first, you think, oh, this is just like a ripoff of Pokemon. Mm-hmm. And I started watching it because what else was I going to do on a Saturday morning when there's nothing else to do? And I started watching it and I was like, oh, this is actually, kind of cool. It's got like, monsters and they change and they look really like edgy compared to Pokemon a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. And as I watched more and more of it, got more acquainted with it, I began to really appreciate the anime even more than the Pokemon anime because, the Pokemon anime kind of, introduces a plot sort of, but then it just kind of, after the Indigo League, it just kind of gives up everything and says, no, we're just going to do episodic adventures from now on. Have no fear. We'll have stories for years. Like Misty becomes a robot. Maybe there'll be a wacky wedding. Do. Sorry for the clip show. Whereas Digimon, had a plot and had an ending. And that was cool.
Yeah, no, my history with it is pretty similar to what I said in our Yu-Gi-Oh episode, which is I was all in on Pokemon in 1998 at the age of 16, which honestly was out of the demographic, I'd say. But for some reason, even though I loved the toy commercial that was Pokemon, the next year when all the things launched that were in the same vein as it in the United States, I just rolled my eyes at them and was just like, these are just Pokemon ripoffs. Nah, like it seems dumb, especially on the surface. Hearing the name of a show called Digimon, like that sounded exactly to me on the level of all the terrible Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle ripoffs I knew as a kid that were like, yeah, you have nothing to you except your name's Street Sharks instead of, you're sharks instead of turtles, You
weren't into fighting Foodons?
Oh, God, I guess that's a worse show, yeah. Even the pro wrestling one, the rebirth of Ultimate Muscle, I was like, it's just in the same Pokemon thing too. But I learned from a Digimon and Pokemon fan growing up, my husband, that Digimon goes there and it is a better like anime and much more modern than what Pokemon was. So now that I've given it a chance, I'm like, I totally see the appeal of Digimon that it had over competitors like Pokemon, which also I've learned that Digimon fans are really tired of hearing Pokemon brought up in the same sentence as them.
As for me, I liked Pokemon because of the Nintendo connection, and I like the character design. Well, this one, remember back in the early 2000s, and probably up until recently, when like disliking TV shows could be part of your personality? Just like, well, that's an important. If you think you hate that TV show, I hate it more, and I'm going to write an entire long rant about it online. Well, I didn't like this at all. And when I was reviewing DVDs, like back in the beginning of my writing career in 2001, this was sent to me, and I knew it from, being on Fox Kids. It started airing when I was a senior in high school, but I got the DVD of the first 13 episodes in like spring of 2001 or summer or something like that, and I didn't like it. And I still have that review on my computer, and I was like, it'd be fun if I read some of this review on the air, and then I read the review, and I was like, well, no one's gonna know what I said, because it's all just like, this show's a real piece of shit. Let me tell you something. A shameless ripoff. It was all of the very cringy, like, no one has hated something more than me. I'm gonna tell you about how much I hate this thing. Then I read it like as a nearly 40-year-old man 20 years later, and I'm like, what was my problem? Like, we were all like that, weren't we? Just like, I'll tell you why Family Guy's the worst.
All we had was our anger and rage. We didn't have much else.
Can you imagine being mad at a TV show now? You just like, well, I'll just watch something else. I don't care. I'm not need to like write a rant online or write a book about it.
Oh, you'd be surprised. But I like to call that Doug Walker syndrome.
Exactly. If things had gone slightly askew, I could have been a tyrant like Doug Walker, that guy with the glasses. But that was just style at the time. And you know what? I'm sure it's fine. It was just not made for like a sexually frustrated 19-year-old watching it in 2001.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Digimon is obviously a show geared towards kids, but, I would argue that it's surprisingly dark for a kids show. Like one of the later episodes, straight up, they don't show it, but they straight up imply that Ty's mother slaps him because he accidentally took his sick sister out and almost killed her.
Yeah, no, I mean, and characters, like, sometimes characters die. Sometimes, like, divorce is mentioned. Matt and TK's mom, they talk about living in split parents thing, which, like, divorce is even more culturally frowned upon in Japan than it is in the U.S.
And as I've gotten older, like I've heard just for the past 21 years, like whispers, like, but Digimon's actually good. And like the games are good too, play the games. But I don't have time in my life to play like another RPG. But I know like secretly there's been something going on with Digimon. So I'm excited to get into it because I know I didn't give it the justice it deserved in 2001. But maybe the localization wasn't great either.
It definitely wasn't.
Yeah. We'll definitely talk about the localization when we talk about this short/movie. But yeah, the localization really suffers from what I like to call, well, I don't really know what to call it other than Jeff Nimoy just like to put in way too much dialogue.
I mean, if I could diagnose the localization, which definitely is weird to watch now from 1999, it's just that I think that they were very punchy guys on low pay and no time who the only fun they could have is entertaining themselves with like, well, all right, my boss isn't going to watch this back, so I'll just put in whatever joke I want to put in here. I'll just shove. Honestly, it's like MST3K level sometimes with the level of like jokes they shove in of a character saying something off screen. Like, I'd hate to see the chicken that laid that egg.
I watched like part of the first episode of like the Fox run of this cartoon from like the early late 90s, and what surprised me and what I liked was when they introduced the characters, they show their like full Japanese names, and then they're like, what can we pull out of this that you dumbos in America will understand? Like, so it's just like Izumi is like, oh, she's Zumi or whatever. Like they pulled out like a chunk of the Japanese name for the American kids to like grab onto.
Yamato is Matt.
Matt, yes.
Yeah, and I believe Takeru whatever becomes TK.
Yes, yeah. And Iziki becomes Izzy. I know it's Izzy. Yeah,
Izzy. Yeah, like, but just even showing a child a Japanese name in 1999 felt like edgy. Like, ooh.
Well, and Pokemon spent all that money getting away every like Japanese thing it could from its first season of stuff. But like when they go to Tokyo and Digimon, they don't call it like Super City or man. They just say like, hey, yeah, we're in Tokyo. My mom lives in a like. They're like, oh, I remember when I went to Odaiba. I was like, wow, that you kept that in the dub. Like just the mention of the area named Odaiba.
Yeah, that's honestly one of the. It was kind of admirable that the dub did that, considering, every other dub at the time was just so hell-bent on scrubbing every bit of Japanese culture out of it because, I don't know, they just were terrified that kids would just panic and become weeaboos, which unfortunately we did.
And stop buying American cars.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I mean, this is a different conversation, not to get too sidetracked, but that's something that always mystified me as like an anime lover in the late 90s, seeing all the Japanese stuff just get erased from anime when it got localized. Like, no, the exotic nature of this thing is what makes it appealing to Americans. Like, oh, this is different. Like, this is stuff that we don't see. So when you paint over a rice ball, it's not as fun. It's like when you see a rice ball, you're like, what is that? I want that. And then like when you're 30, you have one for the first time.
You go to Japan and say, like, finally I can eat that rice ball that I've been seeing called a donut for years and years. But yeah, I guess let's get into the history of Digimon and the digital monsters, both the toy that became a cartoon and then a cartoon that became an American cartoon. So briefly about the company Bandai, they were a toy company that was already in their fourth decade of existence by the 1990s, and they'd had many big hit toys. We talked a little bit about them with Gundam because the Gunpla toys that they made were not toys. They're not toys, Mom. Those figures were making them a ton of money, and they were big in the toy market. They also were early on the on the Nintendo Entertainment System / Famicom. They were one of the first third parties on the system. So they were big into video games. We come into the 1990s and they develop a landmark toy, the Tamagotchi. Now, Bandai had already made LCD handhelds after Nintendo's success with the Game & Watch in the early 80s. Lots of companies made their own takeoffs on that very simple, calculator technology to turn it into a video game.
It's weird, just the little bubble of products it spawned and the things it influenced, like the Dreamcast. The VMU was just a Tamagotchi, and you played Tamagotchi-style games for the 3 hours the battery lasted.
It was the only reason people played Sonic Adventure.
Exactly, yeah.
It was a Chow game that had something else attached to it. Yeah.
Yeah, something about like water, I think.
Chocobos got their own one as well. That
the Pocket Station.
Not that Americans got that game, but yeah, and Pikachu himself got to have a rip-off of it.
That's the one that I had, so it's weird. I mean, I think I was vaguely aware of Digimon before it was a cartoon. I believe the toys came over here before the cartoon. Is that correct, Henry?
That is correct.
I remember seeing commercials for the toys, but I had the Pokemon Pikachu Tamagotchi-style thing, and I had to keep it a secret because I was like, liking anime was like kind of like being in the closet, not to be too not to exaggerate too much, but it was just like, no one must know that I like Pokemon. I'm 16 years old in Catholic high school. So like I was walking around and making sure it didn't click too loud, the little step counter.
Right. And you saying that reminded me now that at the time, I'm pretty sure how it worked was that Tamagotchis were marketed in the West as the girls' toy, whereas Digimon was targeted more towards boys.
Yes, yeah. So there were virtual pets before the Tamagotchi, but mostly in video games, not as their own dedicated thing. It was really the work of Akihiro Yokoi and Aki Maita, both working under Bandai's director of marketing, Takeichi Hongo. Those three together came up with a new toy that would take the LCD 16 by 16 screens and be able to turn that into not just, a video game that can imitate like single screen action, but instead turning it into a virtual pet that you have to take care of, that you have to feed or it will die, that you hatch, that all this stuff it was an incredible hit in Japan and all over Asia in 1996. It got so big, we were hearing about it in 1996. And by the time it started coming over here, there was a shortage of them. Like they could not make enough Tamagotchis to sell them. There were Gigapets and other ripoffs.
Gigapets.
I actually remember the Tamagotchi being fairly hard to find when they first came out because of that shortage.
Yeah.
Like they were just all over the news and people just were scrambling to find them. They were like the Tickle Me Elmo of their era.
They were the hot toy that you couldn't get your hands on. And so kids like my younger brother got into Gigapets instead of Tamagotchi, which if I could have got a Tamagotchi, I do think my love of Japanese culture would have got me to get it. But I've said many times before on podcasts that if my little brother liked something, I would like it less because I wanted to prove I was older than him. And so I think it was similar with virtual pets and that craze.
I've never had a Tamagotchi. Maybe you could tell me if it works the same way, but the Pokemon Pikachu virtual pet was even more Japanese because you played a gambling game to earn more of the currency to feed Pikachu. You had a little slot machine.
Oh, man. I don't think there was a gambling. And the Digimon original does not have a gambling game. It does have like a training game, but no gambling. But I guess that's the Nintendo's extra touch there.
Got to teach those kids how to gamble.
But yeah, I mean, when you see the cute round plastic egg shape of it, you can see the genderedness of it, though. I mean, I would have assumed it was a universal toy, not just for girls over boys. But I mean, in both American and Japanese toys, they are incredibly gendered.
I mean, it's like women and eggs. I mean, they go together in some way.
Yeah, that's true. So it was a huge hit in 1997, many copycats. And of course, Bandai, they want to expand their market even more in the V-Pet genre. So they come up with the boy version of it, Digital Monsters or Digimon. And this is where, Tamagotchi was its own thing that came out the same year as Pokemon, that were both kind of riding the same wave of, virtual pets, an interesting idea. But I don't think one was copying the other there. But I do think you could say that after the hit of Pokemon Red and Green in Japan in 96, that maybe informed why Digimon would be their next step with Tamagotchi, to make it a thing where not only do you raise a dinosaur-looking animal, but they also fight other Digimon and you hook them together, kind of similarly to how you would hook up a Game Boy to a Game Boy for fighting.
There's definitely some influence. In my original review of this, I just was like, yeah, it's called Pokemon. This is called Digimon. What a ripoff. But I didn't realize, in Japan, they often make portmanteaus out of like two English words and slam them together. Like your computer is your Pasocon, personal computer, and like Famicom and things like that. I didn't know that at the time, but there is some connection there. But the idea of like a little creature that you play with digitally was like just happening. It was just part of the zeitgeist in the mid 90s in Japan.
Look, they're all ripping off SMT as far as I'm concerned.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Not as much Satanism, unfortunately.
Sadly.
Unfortunately.
You know what? They did predict digital animals pretty well, except we haven't had the biblical rapture just yet. I predict it'll happen soon, but
2020 is to be believed.
But yeah, if you've never played with a Digimon before, which I had not until this very week when my husband got me the throwback machine of the original version of it, much like with Tamagotchi, you start with an egg, it hatches, and it slowly grows over time. In this case, they digivolve from the fresh stage to in training to then rookie, champion, and then ultimate. And they grow over time just over a 16 by 16 LCD screen that they somehow are able to express all these different types of monsters in it, usually very dinosaur looking ones.
I like how creative they are with the dot graphics.
Yeah.
Just they can make so much happen with just like only there's no different shades of black, right?
No,
Yeah.
it's just black. It's they do some really impressive stuff with the tiny amount of pixels they have on this thing.
I distinctly remember a commercial where when they introduced the Mega Evolutions, they were like, I got Ultimate, I got Mega, no way! And I don't remember why I remember that one in particular, but I do.
When you feel like you earn something if you get to, that's why it's a big deal, the digivolving in the show, but it happens so fast because right now, if I could get my character up to Ultimate, I'd feel like I really accomplished something. And also, like in Tamagotchis too, they can die and they poop. There is a dedicated cleanup poop choice in the screen.
Pikachu also pooped.
That's good. They don't poop. In the Pokemon games, they don't poop. You don't got to clean it up.
There's one thing that I think the Digimon anime does that's kind of smarter than the Pokemon anime, is that they have it so that when a Digimon digivolves, they change back after a while, which I think was smart because, Pikachu is going to remain Pikachu no matter what.
That's
he can
true.
never, change because then he's stuck like that forever.
Yeah, that's, you're right. That the cycle of it makes it so Agumon can always be the star, even if he needs to get in fights that an Agumon can't win. And so he can just turn into Greymon or then Mega Greymon?
Metal Greymon.
Metal Greymon, yes.
And then War Greymon, and then he digimerges with Metal Garurumon to become Omnimon.
That's right, yeah. And
And,
Omnimon's cool. I like him.
So with the like different naming conventions of these characters, it's all something Mon. Is it the same between the American and Japanese languages?
I think it is.
Yes, it is. I actually just watched a bit of the 2020 reboot of Digimon Adventure just recently for this podcast, and they do call him Greymon and Agumon and all of that.
Okay, that's interesting because
very different from Pokemon as well there, yeah.
With the short, it's just like Kurumon is like the original thing you see, and it's named after the onomatopoeia for rolling, like kurururu, like that. So that's why it's named that, but it's just like, well, what would that be in English?
I like that they kept them. I think they caught... Perhaps they, in the localization, they learned that, like, kids just accept Pikachu as a word, so we can just have Agumon that doesn't, like, mean anything in English and still just be accepted as a phrase.
A fun little theory that I saw once was that the Digimon themselves are called that because they are a file, and Mon is the, file type, so it's Agu.mon or Pada.mon. Or Gray.mon.
I don't have the Mon file reader on my Mac yet.
None of us do.
I totally believe that. I absolutely believe that. Well, and so again, Digimon comes out 1997, another huge hit. Accompanying that is a one-shot manga, but it would get even bigger the next year in 1998 as Bandai is really starting to invest in it. And as we know from our Pokemon podcast, 97 is when Pokemon gets its own anime too, which despite having a giant medical issue it causes, it still is a huge hit in Japan. So by 1998, they've got new Digimon devices in stores. They're making their own card game as well, toys, all of that. So in 1998, obviously, they are going to start working on an anime and a new manga that will be attached to it. And also in 1998, early 1998, Tamagotchi in America has gotten so big that Digimon comes over here. The first Digimon toy came to America months before Pokemon was released in the US.
And I actually owned an original Digimon like Digivice myself.
Nice.
I don't have it anymore, unfortunately, but I do remember having it.
I think when I was messing around with like ROMs and stuff before Pokemon came out in America, I was like, I think I might have assumed like Digimon and Pokemon were the same thing. I was like, oh, this must be the version of that toy that I saw, like a KB Toys, not knowing that like what Pokemon even was, because I just had like the Japanese ROM from 1996 and I was playing it in 1997.
I found many stories about kids who grew up with their Digimon to be like, it was like the first time they learned about like loss, or they get so sad that like I dropped it down a storm drain or whatever, or I broke it, because Bandai made these things tough, but children break shit all the time. Like you can't trust them with anything.
Yeah, I'm surprised there was no like chick tract about that. Like little Sally was so attached to her Parrotmon that she took her own life.
Could you imagine if SMT got popular over here? The chick tracks would be insane.
Oh, man, I wish Demi Kids had been the hit here. It should have been.
I want to see like the 2020 about that in like 1992. The kids call it Soul Hackers.
And parents are worried. John Stossel would have had a lot of opinions on it. But so, yeah, Bandai 2 years in a row has a huge hit with these virtual toys. So it's virtual pet toys. Time to ramp it up. November 1998, in the magazine V-Jump, they launched the first regular manga about Digimon called Digimon Adventure V-Tamer. And it starred a young boy with crazy hair and aviator goggles named Taichi. Tai for short, as we know him in America. And it was all drawn by Hiroshi Izawa. And Izawa would define a lot of the look of what would be used in future anime adaptations of Digimon, also adapting a lot of the characters and animal types to work in the drawn form. His name, Hiroshi Izawa, combined with the other two recognized creators at Bandai of Tamagotchi, they would be combined to create the portmanteau Akiyoshi Hongo. So if you see the name Akiyoshi Hongo, it's like, oh, created by blank. That's just a combining of names to present the created by credit on Digimon.
Much like Digital Monster.
Yeah. Also, though, a lot of the famous monsters that we know that don't look like dinosaurs from the early years, they were actually designed by a different artist, Kenji Watanabe. So, they're gearing up for the big release. They got the manga, but that's just the start. They need an anime if they're going to start selling toys to kids. And so, even though Bandai owns its own studio at this point, Sunrise, they bought the creators of Gundam, they instead partner with a company that absolutely knows how to make a popular kids cartoon show, Toei. Now, we talked a ton about Toei in other podcasts. Listen to our Dragon Ball one or our Sailor Moon one. But short version is Toei is like the granddaddy of animation studios in Japan. They were coming off of Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho, Sailor Moon. They see that their competitor has Pokemon. So I think that's a bit of their drive too, that like, all right, we're going to make our own new kid show. And so they start working with Bandai and developing the series. Artist Katsuyoshi Nakasuru is hired as the character designer for the kids. Other than Tai Chi, he kind of just has to take what Tai Chi is in the manga and like make some changes to it. But the rest of the kids, I believe, are all Nakasuru designs. And he was one of the top designers and animators on Toei's Dragon Ball Z. And especially when I see adult characters in the Digimon series, I'm like, that's a Dragon Ball character. You just drew a Dragon Ball adult and put it in here. But it looks great. The kids have like the thinnest arms I've ever seen.
They really do, like little noodle arms.
Or maybe it's just the, their heads are so big that the proportion just seems off on their arms. Though, I mean, kids aren't defined. They don't have thick arms. They should
be working out.
And so the show would also integrate the monsters in the way the toys express them, in that they go through lifespans, they digivolve, they can even die in the show too, and they poop. And I think too, the storytelling with all the kids, they are partnered with one single monster. No, gotta catch them all in this. Like, you just have your monster because, there are other games in the Digimon video games where it's like, no, you have more than one Digimon. But if you're basing it on the singular toy, you have your Digimon and you grow that up. So that's why it's more of a partnership of just one Digimon to kid.
Yeah, I've sometimes had to describe this series as, imagine a mecha anime where the mecha can talk.
Yeah. No, that was quite a choice they made too. They're like, no, they just speak. They all speak. They don't just say their names, which it creates a deeper connection between characters sometimes.
Honestly, if you compare this series, Digimon Adventure, with the last series that I was on, the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, and you look at both of them are about a bunch of kids that lost in another world, and they both have fairly large casts. I really admire Digimon Adventure for managing to make all of its characters feel a lot more defined than the Dungeons and Dragons cast does, honestly.
Well, yeah. And also, no Digimon is as annoying as that unicorn from the Dungeons and Dragons thing.
Hate it. The Slimer voice.
Yeah. But as the series adaptation is beginning in earnest, we should talk about the theatrical level short Toei decided to do on the subject of Digimon, and that involves discussing then rising star of Toei Animation, Mamoru Hosoda.
I love him.
So,
I love his stuff. I love the stuff that he makes.
Yeah,
we all love him.
He's a real rising star. Well, no, I mean, he's not rising. He was then. Now he's just a star of animation. Maybe the top director of Japanese animation at this time, currently in 2020. Back in the 90s, Hosoda had just joined the animation business in the early 90s, worked on a lot of major shows. He was a key animator on Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon and its many spin-offs, Yu Yu Hakusho, and Revolutionary Girl Utena, like one of the top animators on those shows, and a great storyboarder too. He had worked his way up that he was given the first ever director slot for him on the standalone film production of Digimon Adventure that would just be a 20-minute short film that would be partnered with a Dr. Slump revival film that would be released the same year, which is why you're like, well, how is this 20-minute film released then? It's because it was part of like an anthology film of like, oh, it's the Toei films. You're getting multiple ones for your ticket.
There were like a lot of those. Like I remember if I enjoyed a series, I found out there was a movie like this movie's only like 23 minutes long. What happened? Did people pay for this? But yeah, it was part of like, a double feature or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of imagine like a Make Mine Music almost sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't get animated theatrical anthologies too much in the U.S. It's not as big a deal, I think. Also, though, even in 1999, these would happen, these types of theatrical releases, but OVAs were just as likely. I think there were fewer of them after the OVA market had opened up. But so this is all I'm sourcing from a fan-translated interview with Hosoda from 2001. But I trust it because it was shared by folks who I'm like, oh, you've shared righteous fan translators before. I trust this is real. So he said originally his team was going to make just a single movie. There was no plan for a TV show when they were in the early stages. And he really latched onto the idea of little kids finding these wild animals that start cute and then transform into uncontrollable beasts. And I mean, also, when you watch this, you can totally see the influence of Evangelion and the grittier idea of kaiju stuff that was coming in the 90s.
I mean, it wouldn't reach that level until we got to Tamers, which that's another podcast entirely.
Yes, yeah, it is. But I will touch on Tamers just a little bit later. But yeah, Hosoda originally envisioned this as taking place in the 1960s, and it would star Taichi's dad, and it would be a flashback, and then it'd be Taichi would meet the monsters that his father had met. But when he pitched that to Toei, they turned it down. They didn't want something set in the 60s. It needed to be now. And so instead, he was like, fine, then I'll have these monsters come to a very realistic version of some area in Tokyo. And after looking around at different types of places, he decided to base it on the area Hikarigaoka, which is in the Nerima ward of Tokyo. And
I just know it as Heightened View Terrace.
It is Heightened View Terrace. That's the name of the area in the localization, which is said many, many, many times in the show. But it's basically a big apartment complex in a area of a giant city. And he liked seeing it as a setting for a kaiju battle because he wanted all these kids watching from their balconies in this apartment complex like they're basically in a Roman Colosseum watching a fight happen. So, partnered with screenwriter Reiko Yoshida, Hosoda planned the film set in modern Tokyo and just based around two kids that were actually patterned after the siblings in the critically celebrated Spanish film The Spirit of the Beehive, which I watched a million years ago.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
It's about two sisters, basically of separate ages, just like Taichi and Ikari in here, who one is trying to grow up too fast and the other doesn't want to grow up. And it's an interesting film. I do like it. I was shocked to see that was what Hosoda was drawing from, but he's a big fan of high art films. And so he starts boarding out the film. He is partnered with top Toei animator Takaaki Yamashita as animation director. Yamashita is, he did have a partnership going forward with Hosoda. He's worked on most of Hosoda's films, and if you look him up on Yamashita on Sakuga Buro, you will see some amazing stuff. He's one of the best animators around. As Hosoda tells the story, a month into production, he gets word that this is going to be a TV series as well. And so his idea is going to need to match up with the TV show. So that's when he decides, okay, the two kids, I'm going to make them younger than they are in the TV show, 4 years younger. So this will be a prequel that can be unconnected from the TV show. And he would add in very short, brief clips of Taichi as he is in the TV series as a way of him saying, like, this happened earlier. That was his connection there.
See, it's funny you say that because the movie that we got, sort of references the TV series, obviously because it came after the TV series. So there's a lot of confusion there, which we'll get into. But hearing that, it actually makes a lot of sense to me now. Yeah,
I thought the only time you see him in his like Digimon TV series gear is like the final shot on the credits of him like touching the Mon, and he's got the goggles and everything, and they're literally playing the intro song for the anime, which I had on a CDR that I drove around. Very cool. Listening to it in my car.
You look down on Digimon, but you love the soundtrack.
Yes, not the American opening though. It was no Rock the Dragon.
I have a hot take here. I actually think that the American opening is a better indicative theme of the show than Butterfly is. Not to be confused with the Crazy Town song of the same name.
Yes,
or the DDR hit. Aye.
But yeah, I like Butterfly as a song. Don't get me wrong here. I listen to it all the time. It's very catchy and very mellow. It's a very good J-rock song. Mugenta na 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 na. The problem is that it sounds too mellow and too peaceful and too happy for me. Whereas Digimon, the American theme, sounds a lot more synthy, a lot more dangerous, a lot more ominous sounding. And I think, okay, this is a theme to digital monsters.
I associate it with like being in my car in 2002. It's like, oh, the Ava theme is up next. I think I'll listen to this.
The US Digimon theme, I see it as more from the genre of creepy crawly commercials, like beep 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 beep. Like that to me.
That's a great approximation.
Beep beep beep.
Oh God, Creepy Crawlies had a cartoon. I just remembered that.
Oh man, that'll be your next suggestion? I'm up.
No,
for
it's
that.
Laverne and Shirley. I thought we established this.
That's right. Yes, I'm looking forward to that.
Coming soon to What a Cartoon.
But also Hosoda was partially inspired by the works of Stanley Kubrick. He's a big fan of that, and that includes using consistently through it, like in 2001, a piece of famous classical music, but recontextualizing it in a new way, which in this case is the Bolero by Ravel, which is I believe a 20, almost the length of this feature is the full song Bolero. And I just love how it is a slowly rising and evolving song that just like you hear, like a 2-minute stretch, and then it's like, okay, and another thing comes in and it just builds and builds. It works perfectly for a story about a growing, evolving monster. And when you see a new version of the monster, the next layer of Bolero starts playing. It's really great.
Wow, that's really clever. I didn't even realize that until you mentioned it, but yeah, wow, that's pretty cool.
And also this has a deep Toei connection in the lead voice actor as well. Taichi is voiced by the late Toshihiko Fujita, who she voiced Pierre, the lead boy in Puss in Boots, like the Toei film, the 60s classic. So getting her to voice Taichi, that I think shows they had a lot of belief in Digimon as a series for Toei. So this was released in theaters alongside that Dr. Slump film March 6th, 1999, the very same week it debuts on Japanese television, the regular show of it, which is why the credit roll on this is Butterfly, the opening song. So the TV series debuts. I think it hooked a generation with kids with its darker storytelling than Pokemon. It was I think it, like Yu-Gi-Oh, it identified that the kids who had Pokemon 2 years ago, a little older, so they're ready for a little darker stuff. And the first film was such a success for Hosoda, and I think it was critically received very well too, that he was then given a chance to direct a twice as long Digimon movie, 40 minutes long, called Children's War or Our War Game, which explicitly was inspired by the Matthew Broderick film War Games. And it's about a digital monster appearing on the internet and almost causing nuclear holocaust by launching a nuke. And they have to, through Digimon fighting, prevent it. And it's such a clever short. Well, it's not short, but 40 minutes. As a 40-minute film, it is so clever because it is almost basically in real time. Like it takes as long as it takes his mom to make a cake as it takes for them to save the world from a nuclear bomb falling.
Oh, I love Our War Game. In fact, I was thinking of suggesting that, but unfortunately, it requires a bit too much knowledge of the series itself, and I thought this was a better, introduction to
Oh, for sure.
Digimon.
No, it's such a great film. Both of them are. Like Hosoda, I'll say this about Digimon, nothing in Pokemon that has had the Pokemon name attached to it has been as good an animated film as what Hosoda did with his 2 Digimon films.
The same for his One Piece movie. It's really, really good. It's the 5th One Piece movie. There's like 18 of them now, but it's Baron Omatsuri and the Secret Island. I have to thank Maddie Kopp for showing this to me when we were hanging out in Portland, or else I never would have seen it.
Oh, man.
But it is One Piece done in his style. It's great. It's really long and not available in the United States, so you gotta steal it.
That One Piece movie is kind of amazing in that it's sort of indicative of a Water 7 before Water 7, honestly.
Oh, I never thought of that. That's true. And you actually
how it's about the Straw Hat Pirates getting into infighting with each other and, sort of falling apart. But then it's before Water 7, so yeah.
But the important thing is you don't need to know anything about One Piece to enjoy it. It's just a fun exploration of his animation style with these very popular characters.
I can't believe that, Hosoda later in his career will become an Oscar-nominated filmmaker, and I can't believe that they won't bring that film to America, or they have
yet
to
crazy.
do so. I don't understand. Is there some legal red tape on it, or I don't know.
I think all the movie rights are different, which is why not many of the One Piece movies have come out over here.
Another reason why I didn't suggest Our War Game was because there's also the movie Summer Wars, which is basically just Our War Game, but without Digimon in it.
Yes.
Which sounds weird, but yeah.
Well, yeah, so Hosoda, on the success of Our War Game, which, again, people were just so impressed with it. They were people felt like, oh, if this is what you could do with Digimon, a thing we think of as just a disposable kids thing, what could you do with your own film? And that included Toshio Suzuki at Studio Ghibli, who felt that Hosoda had such skill that he could direct a film at Studio Ghibli. And so Hosoda was hired to be the director of Howl's Moving Castle. And like Mamoru Oshii would, as we talked about in our Ghost in the Shell thing, working with Hayao Miyazaki on anything sounds almost impossible. And Hosoda would exit the film publicly in 2002, and it was seen as like, oh, this guy failed. Like, everybody knew he left because they'd announced him as the director beforehand.
That's a real shame. I do like Howl's Moving Castle. I don't feel like Miyazaki style did the story justice. Although I really like the film. I think his, like, in a positive way, his stories are very meandering, very like, you know, about little vignettes and stuff. I don't think it fits that story because it just suddenly there's a plot when there needs to be one at the end and it's over. It feels a bit strange. I think I would like to see his own take on that movie.
Yeah, Hosoda, he has said in subsequent interviews, it's like, my career would have been over if I did this the way Miyazaki wanted to, because it's not my way of doing things. And I think artistically for him, it was a situation of trying to make something the way Miyazaki would, but then when you'd present it to Miyazaki, he'd say, I wouldn't do that. And Miyazaki is famous for not holding back his opinions on somebody's art when he sees it. Even his respected like teacher, Yasuo Otsuka, was like, oh, when I worked with him on Future Boy Conan, he was not shy about telling me that he thought a drawing of mine sucked, which Otsuka was like, I can't believe this. I taught this guy.
Oh, Miyazaki.
But yeah, so Hosoda leaves Howl's Moving Castle. He was worried his career was over as well, but he returned to Toei. I think really rebuilt his reputation on making the One Piece film to prove like, no, I can make a film. It'll be the best One Piece film. Everybody will love it. And he also did the opening for Samurai Champloo, which like, what a great opening.
Okay, yeah. Man, that looks just like his stuff. I don't know why I didn't think of him.
Me neither. I didn't know that either until, but that was when he made inroads at Madhouse, and working at the studio Madhouse. He did the 2006 adaptation of The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. Big hit. 2009, he did Summer Wars, which he publicly acknowledges is definitely a takeoff of the ideas he had in his second Digimon film. And after Summer War, he'd actually leave Madhouse to start his own studio, Studio Chizu, which has been creating films since then and had been international hits both critically and commercially. And I definitely think this is not the last time on What a Cartoon we will talk about Hosoda, for sure.
I mean, you guys could do a What a Cartoon movie month just dedicated to him if you wanted to.
Oh, man. I don't know which one I want. I love Summer Wars so much, but Boy and His Beast is pretty good, too.
Oh, I love Boy and His Beast, even though, you know, Wolf Children and Boy and His Beast kind of, to me, feel like him discussing the concepts of motherhood and fatherhood. And in that sense, it's kind of weird because Wolf Children, Ami and Yuki, is about, you know, this woman giving up everything to give her children, you know, opportunities in life. Whereas Boy and the Beast is like, you know, I'm verbally abusive and I don't really pretend like I care much about you, but I really care deep down. So really, you should love me.
You know, I think you get a little of that mother-father dynamic even in this movie, a tiny bit.
Too many dad movies.
All right, but let's go back to 1999. The show is a big hit in Japan. Pokemon is the biggest cartoon on television. It's Kids WB is killing every other network thanks to the hit of Pokemon. And so obviously every channel wants their own thing. And that includes Fox Kids, who were getting sick of losing the rating war to Kids WB. So Fox Kids, they want Digimon and they want it now in incredible, like 5 months after the Japanese debut, they've got it on American television.
That's incredible. It was probably like 18 months for Pokemon, right?
I think it was.
It was like an April 97 show and then the fall 98 in America.
But you know, if you want something done fast and inexpensively, Fox knew to turn to their good old buddy Chaim Saban and his company. Saban already had given Fox its previous biggest hit ever in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and they've been working with Saban quite a lot, and also X-Men and Spider-Man. So this, though, would be a localization for Saban, not an original creation like X-Men or Spider-Man.
I guess they planted the seed in the Fox brain, like, hey, you could just import this footage.
Yep, yeah. and we know how to talk over that footage. And so I only watched a few of the episodes. I think, Devin, you're probably definitely more knowledgeable about it than me, but my thought on the localization was that it was so interesting how they stayed true to both the character names and the monster names and the setting, and yet also shoved in endless dialogue every second, and there's so much talking, and some real liberties are taken as well.
I honestly feel like, to their credit too, for getting this done so fast, that the characters keeping their names is just a matter of like speed. Like, what's this guy? Steve Peterson, Tony Smith. No. Just keep their name. Just plug in a name that makes sense to kids, but just keep the original names. I think it was a matter of like, let's get this done. Let's get it out there.
I mean, yeah, it sucks, especially if you are a fan of the original and you want to, maintain the purity of it. But on the other hand, I'm kind of like, the animation in the TV series is limited enough and it's stiff enough. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that the animation for the Digimon series itself is good enough. All the additional dialogue and all the additional jokes thrown in, they kind of add to the quirkiness and the charm of it, if you ask me. Whereas with this short in particular, I think it kind of doesn't work because the animation is a lot better and it's a lot more lively and it's a lot more cool looking. So all of the additional dialogue kind of creates too much noise, if you ask me.
Well, and Digimon is an early digital animation show too, so it looks even stiffer than a lot of other stuff.
It was a dark time for all animation before you just figured it out.
And yeah, I think sometimes when the localization gives me a chuckle, it's when it feels like an old Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoon where they just say a corny joke over like, oh, here's a bad pun, or here's somebody making fun of a mom for making liver sticks for dinner or whatever.
Yeah.
They take more liberties than they did with Power Rangers. Even the early Power Rangers, pretty much only Rita Repulsa gets to say the crazy stuff that they just they add some old like vaudeville joke to. Though, if you watch Saban's Samurai Pizza Cats from the early 90s, that is, even if you think Digimon takes some liberties, Samurai Pizza Cats never stops talking, and it's every possible joke they could cram in at every second. And
if I recall correctly, the deal with Samurai Pizza Cats is that they actually lost the script when it was like being sent over, so they literally just had to like ad-lib everything just by watching it.
Yeah, I just rewatched the first episode of that for the first time in forever, and it is so wacky. Every line they just say like, oh, that's a crazy pizza, as they look at Okonomiyaki or whatever.
It's pizza, damn it.
There's even a bit where the two lead guys in it, they're arguing over a woman, but they add lines of one guy calls the other cat a crypto-fascist while the other calls him an eco-terrorist.
Wow.
But I did see that a couple writers in the first season of Digimon, Ard White Chamberlain and Michael McConaughey, they did both write for Samurai Pizza Cats, so it's not just a coincidence that the localization feels the same. And yes, a Nimoy did work on this. I believe the second cousin of Leonard Nimoy.
Fascinating. That's my little
Yeah,
joke.
Jeff Nimoy. He also voices Joe and Tentamon, I believe.
Right. Not much Joe or Tentamon in these, but he's the nerd of the group. There's now I can name them all. You got Ty, Kari, TK, Matt, Mimi, Sora, Joe.
You know what?
And Izzy.
As a viewer of this, like passively in like 99, 2000, what was really distracting is just like, why is one of these characters cosplaying Aerith from Final Fantasy VII? It was so distracting. I mean, it's like the exact same kind, like the cowboy hat and the same colors and everything.
Same
like
dress type too.
Same like haircut too, I think. Like it was so distracting that couldn't have been intentional. I think it was just like an accident, but still, it's just like, what's happening here?
See, Mimi reminds me more of this other character from, I think it's an RPG called Wild Arms. I can't remember
Wild
exactly,
Arms.
but there was definitely a character who sort of dressed similar to how she did, at least in terms of like the pink dress and everything and the hat, I think.
It could be they're all taking from the same just mid-90s Japanese fashion sense.
It could be, but they just the way they're proportioned in this show, they do look like Final Fantasy VII characters.
Oh yeah,
their eyes are so far apart on their heads.
They all kind of have weird clothes, if you ask me. Like Izzy has the weird big yellow gloves. Sora has the helmet, which I don't really get that at all. Joe pretty much looks normal.
Joe's the one normal guy, which I guess is why he's the one constantly going like, what do you do? What? No.
I think one of my questions was, in my original review, was like, why is everybody wearing gloves? What's happening here?
A lot of gloves. Yeah, it's true.
Well, gloves are cool, especially the ones that don't have fingers.
Ooh, those are speed gloves.
In 1999, you couldn't have cooler gloves, but you need a butterfly knife to go with it too, just to flip it around. But yeah, a lot of the Saban regulars are in there. Of all of the usual non-union voice actors they go with. Two I want to bring up though are the voice of Ty, Joshua Seth, who sounds like a really interesting guy who is a hardcore magician and mentalist.
Wow.
Like his Wikipedia feels like written by him, that talks about how many times he's performed at the Magic Castle in LA.
I love that, and I may do that for myself one day because I can't live with the shame of my partner having a Wikipedia page but me not having one.
You're gonna have to write it yourself. You're right. Yeah,
I believe you talked about Joshua Seth a bit on your Akira podcast.
that's right. Yeah, he's in the 99 dub of it, isn't he?
He's a Tetsuo, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, he's in the JYB stable, the Johnny Young Bosch stable of actors.
He's got one of those like Spike Spencery voices, just very, very unique voice.
Yeah, very breathy, very high register.
And he still voices a character to this day. Like he had mostly retired from voice acting, but I think he feels a certain attachment to Ty, and he will come back for it if asked to do it. And the same for Agumon's voice actor, Tom Fawn, who seems like a very nice gentleman. I watched an interview with him where he's like, oh, I didn't even know people cared about this until I started doing anime cons a few years ago, and everybody walks up to me and says, Agumon changed my life. I love Agumon. And also, it wouldn't be a Saban localization if it didn't have a theme song written by
Shuki Levy.
Yeah, his name's on all of them because he's that prolific. He must write every song.
It has like 10% more lyrics than Rock the Dragon.
And it's also written with Paul Gordon, who I believe actually is the writer of it. But, and it does do the very Saban song thing of like, kids need to know the name of this thing. Say it over and over and over.
Oh my
We
God.
need to know the name of this show, what does that stand for, and what exactly are these things?
It's maybe like Power Rangers. It's like, go, go, Power Rangers.
Yep, yeah.
You are watching Power Rangers.
I mean, and Ninja Turtles beat him to the punch on that too. Or like, well, even if you go to the 80s stuff that Saban did, like the Littles, it's like the Littles. Doop, 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 doop.
I watched the Lil Bits. Much better.
So the TV version does so good in the US, it airs sometimes 6 days a week, like only taking off the Lord's Day of Digimon content.
That's
Like,
when God stopped watching anime on Sunday.
and so obviously when you have that big a hit and you're following Pokemon, even beating Pokemon in the ratings, and in 1999 Pokemon releases their first film in theaters that makes real money, obviously 20th Century Fox is going to want their own movie to release in theaters. And so they pressure the localizers of Saban to give them something that can be released in theaters. As localizers for Saban said it, if they had their way, it'd just be the first and second movie, both the Hosoda films, and they just stitch them together with some new line bullshit. But Fox wanted the third film in there too because that involved the second season kids, and the second season kids from Digimon Adventure 02, they wanted to promote them being in the movie. So they then get the third movie that is even less connected to the other two. They hack it to bits, all three of them, and shove them together into one 90-minute film.
They try to create a very, like, transparent through line in this film where it's like, oh, Willis was getting his Digimon at this exact same moment as we were. And Willis was really the guy who created, Diaboromon, who almost caused nuclear holocaust.
It's so sweaty, and especially if you've seen the original versions and see all the stuff they cut. At some points, it feels like if I was Hosoda seeing this, I would feel personally insulted with the kind of cuts they made.
This is a real like mishmash of all kinds of different kinds of content. Then.
Yeah. Oh, well, and the demands of Fox feature films, too. You got to have a soundtrack that you can sell in stores, You can't just have some lame-o bolero song playing over it or other classical works. You need Smash Mouth. You need Fat Boy Slim. You need the Bare Naked Ladies. You need Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. And you need to have those songs blaring over scenes that don't fit in any possible way to them.
And that's why this movie will never be available on streaming.
Exactly.
Wow.
That is right. It's in full on YouTube, at least in the United States. You can watch it, but it's so the music use is terrible. Like, now I can imagine being 10 and just being like, oh, these are cool songs. I like these songs. But as a refined man of 38, I'm just like, oh, you put 1 week here? This is terrible.
We did not at all reference Angela Anaconda yet. The kids need to know.
Yes,
The
yeah.
band.
That's the worst slap in the face to this, if you ask me. Not only do you take 3 different movies, one of them you didn't even really want to do, then you just chop them up and then stitch them together. You then have to put a freaking 15-minute Angela Anaconda half episode in front of it. Nobody likes Angela Anaconda. I say this as a guy who freaking watched Angela Anaconda as a kid, and even I hated it.
No one liked it. No one wanted it, but it felt like something to pad out the time, but also to boost, like, oh, we got to please somebody else. So what if we had an Angela Anaconda short beforehand where her and her friends are going to see the Digimon movie and chant in excitement to see it?
You want to know a depressing fact that only I know?
Mhm.
So this Angela Anaconda short, obviously, there is another version of this Angela Anaconda short where they remove all of the Digimon references entirely so that they can premiere it on TV, and they call them Mega Giants. And they even have like a fakey sounding version of the Digimon theme, but they just go Mega Giants, Mega Giants, Mega Giants,
Wow.
our champions.
Wow. I gotta say, respect to the producers on Angela Anaconda for reusing that stuff and not just letting it stay in that movie. And it's also, I believe on the DVD, it's just at the start of the film. It's not like a separate extra or something. To experience the Digimon movie, you have to watch the Angela Anaconda short beforehand.
There was something, and I can't find it online because everything's behind a goddamn paywall, but there was some kind of thing about Angela Anaconda in that they were, the way the shorts look, and we'll never talk about it outside of this, so everybody just calm down. The way the shorts look is that they are real pictures of children's faces, but like old like yearbook photos in black and white, but just like turned into animation. And I believe they were doing this without the permission of the people they were pulling the pictures from, and they were in big trouble, and it was like pulled from the air. But I can't find anything about this right now.
Maybe that's also why this film can't come out. Well, and also, I mean, the types of stuff, they make even more changes to it that are crazy. I'll kind of note the biggest ones as we go through the film itself, but they make so many big changes that I could see Toei just going like, how did, like, no one can see this now. Like, you changed way too much.
Angela Anaconda is such an ugly show to watch. Like, I remember watching it, and yeah, it just looks awful. I'm saying this is a guy who's going to make you guys watch Laverne and Shirley Join the Army. I am never going to make you watch Angela Anaconda.
Thank you.
Be thankful for that.
Thank you.
They made 65 of those, though.
Jesus, man.
Jesus.
But the film, Digimon the movie, which also had an embellished version of the Digimon theme song that became the Digi Rap, which I'm definitely going to be playing in the break here, so look forward to
Did
that.
they name all the Pokemon? Or sorry, Digimon?
No, they it's mainly about doing plays on the word digi, being like, did you know? Did you hear? Did you that like that?
That didn't catch on.
So ultimately, the film at the box office earned $16 million. Definitely profitable, but nothing like what, say, the Pokemon movie made. And so, unsurprisingly, this is the only theatrically released in America Digimon film. And I think Fox, it still was being very successful. The second series 02 premieres. They age up the cast and replace most of them with new kids. The aviator goggles are passed down to another child.
I hate O2. Like, I'm sorry
Well,
to
most
anyone out there
people
who's
do,
a
yeah.
fan of O2, but yeah, I don't like it at all.
And the creators apparently also didn't like it and felt very boxed in by the concept. And when they got to the last episode, they do a 30 years forward, flash forward, and they're just like, this is the end. This is what happened to every character. We're done with this. And that flash forward ending is caused a lot of problems for them later on. But
So many people are salty about the fact Matt and Sora wound up together. So many people were salty about that.
everybody wanted Tai and Sora. That was the ship. There's a reason, too, that then in the third season just reboots everything. And actually, I think takes inspiration from this first short because they're like, okay, no, back to a monster in the real world and trying to hide your monster from your dad kind of thing.
Yeah, Tamers is really good. In fact, I might actually ask you guys to do an episode of Tamers sometime.
I'm up for that. But the series Digimon kind of started flagging stateside. Fox Kids just stopped existing. And when it became the 4Kids network, well, 4Kids isn't going to keep on a Saban program, is it?
Another dark era.
Yeah, it didn't survive the Fox block. So instead it went over to Disney. But then like Digimon went away for a few years, came back. That then led to fans of the original version of Digimon growing old enough to want to see those characters in high school, which led to the 6-film series Try that were done for the 15th anniversary. And then when that ended this year for the 20th anniversary, or I guess really last year for the 20th anniversary, but it came out this year, they did Last Evolution, which is like a tearful farewell to the original Tamers. And it really is about like, these kids are adults now. They drink beer. They own pornography that Agumon finds, and it's uncomfortable.
Bought it at the pornography store.
I'm kind of glad that I didn't watch any of those Try movies, to be honest. Just because, I was like, well, maybe I'll give them a try, because I look and I see that, they got a lot of the original actors back, but then they got a certain guy to voice Matt.
Oh, no.
I decided, no, I wouldn't.
Matt's not
Vic Mignogna.
that certain voice actor is not in Last Evolution, thankfully.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I did watch Last Evolution, and I definitely have heard some Digimon fans don't like some changes to the canon that were made in that film, but I thought it was a really good, goodbye to your childhood movie that also has some really clever callbacks to this film, even the very first Digimon film.
I will tell people out there, do not be confused if you try to look up the TV series, because there is a reboot with the exact same name, except there is a colon after Digimon Adventure. So that fooled me, but that's like just a direct remake of the original series. Like
yeah,
20
it's a
years
reboot.
later.
And I, as I said before, I watched the first 3 episodes of it for this, and it's okay. But the problem that I have with it is that the second episode is literally just them redoing the plot of our war game, and not as good because the animation is fine, it's passable, but it's not friggin' Mamoru Hosoda like theatrical animation.
Well, yeah, I mean, on a TV budget in general, you're always going to be constrained. Like, I forgot to mention, Hosoda even directed one episode of season 1, which is kind of a sequel to this first movie. It was episode 21. And even there, you can see, him and his team are being as artistic as they can within the weekly budget of a TV show, but you can also really see the constraints on it.
It's frightening to me that things that were released when I was technically an adult, the reboot is now out for the people my age to share with their children.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it's telling you should be having kids by now.
Never. This empire dies with me.
But all right, that is the history of Digimon to a point, and I'm sure we will return to Digimon more in the future, and Mamoru Hosoda. So why don't we take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to talk about the Digimon Adventure film.
Digimon, Digital Monsters, Digimon Garlic Champions. Digimon, Digital Monsters, Digimon Garlic Champions. Digimon into champion. Digimon into ultimate. Change into digital champions to save the digital world. Digimon, Digital Monsters, Digimon Garlic Champions. 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 Digimon, Digital Monsters, Digimon.
Digimon will be back in a few minutes on Fox Kids.
All this week, the Digiworld will rock! Exciting adventure yet when we find the crisps and tags that allow our Digimon to finally Digivolve up to the ultimate level! But only one Digimon will Digivolve. To find out who, watch an all-new week of Digimon Digital Monsters starting Monday afternoon on Fox Kids! Snowballmon! Digivolve too!
Snowman Mon.
Who's he?
Snowman Mon is a festive Digimon.
Oh, it's the Fox Kids way of saying Happy Holidays.
Digi, welcome into the digital world of this podcast. And the break, I'm Henry Gilbert.
Hey everybody, it's Bob Mackey, but if I was a digital monster, I'd be Mackey-Mon. Think about it.
And giant thank you to our guest this week, premium patron Devin, who also chose this subject and challenging us older millennials to care about younger millennial things. And I learned a lot about Digimon, and I actually do enjoy Digimon now.
I have a greater appreciation for the world of Mon.
Also, since this came out, I got as a gift the Evangelion Tamagotchi, and it's a lot of fun. Eva Unit 1. But yes, Devin is just one of our many fantastic patrons at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, who while me and Bob do this What a Cartoon podcast and Talking Simpsons as weekly podcasts.
That's right. If you want to be cool like Devin and support the show and get all kinds of bonus stuff on top of that, please go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Sign up for $5 a month. You get access to all these episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, and also access to everything behind the $5 paywall. That includes everything we've made behind that paywall for nearly 3.5 years, all coming up on 4 years. That includes all of our limited miniseries. The most recent one was Talking Futurama Season 2 Part 2. Coming this spring, coming in March, we're going to be doing Talking to the Hill Season 2 Part 1. And just unlocked on Patreon, we are now doing monthly Talking Futurama. So every month, as long as we stay above a certain threshold, we'll be bringing you one new Futurama every month alongside our 2 miniseries every year. So that's a lot of bonus content, not even including everything we've done before that, interviews, end of season wrap-ups, and deleted scene specials for Talking Simpsons, and so much more. So much is going on behind that paywall. And you can only hear those podcasts if you sign up for $5 at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. And Henry can tell everybody out there what's happening at the $10 level. That includes all the $5 stuff, of course, but also access to one Megalon podcast once a month, only for patrons of that level or higher.
Yeah, that's our premium podcast, What a Cartoon Movie. If you like how in-depth we went in this mini film for Digimon, I think you'll love hearing us talk about full-length feature films. Last month in the free feed, you probably heard our awesome preview for our Dexter's Lab Ego Trip one. You want to hear the full thing, probably over 3, definitely up to over 3 hours long. And that's just the start of it. You'll also get a giant back catalog of stuff. If you like the anime talk in this one, I think you'll really love our ones about the end of Evangelion, Akira, Kiki's Delivery Service, Cowboy Bebop the movie, and coming this month, if you're a $10 and up patron, you'll get to hear our one about Whisper of the Heart, one of my favorite Ghibli films. Please consider signing up at the $10 level to get everything that we put out at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
And if you've never been on Patreon before, it is so easy to sign up. And once you do, you're given access to a code that you can access anytime. You just drop that code into whatever you use to listen to podcasts. And that way you can download all of our bonus podcasts alongside your free podcast in whatever app you use. And also there's a Patreon app for any smart device you might have, so you can download our bonus content that way as well. But either way you do it is so easy to access all the bonus content waiting for you at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
Now let's digivolve this break into our film discussion of Digimon Adventure.
Now, back to Digimon on Jetix.
All right. Ready to go? I'm ready. Ready? Let's go. The Digivolution is up and running. Did you see? Did you hear? Did you know it was coming? A Digi Destiny starts today. Let me hear you say Digimon. Digimon, Digital Monsters, Digimon Gala Champions. Digimon, Digital Monsters, Digimon Gala Champions. With Digi-Will and Digivice in hand, there's a Digi-Dynamic force in Digiland. When the Digi-Past and Digi-Present collide, time to Digi-Side. Digimon, Digimon, Digital Monsters, Digimon Gala Champions. Digimon, Digital Monsters, Digimon Gala Champions.
Okay, so I'm sorry to make you guys listen to the Digi-Rap as we came into this, but you had to get the real feel of being in the theater for Digimon the movie right before this starts.
I imagine you're an 8-year-old, your shirt has some sort of flames on it rising from the bottom.
That rap is awesome, and I will hear nothing to the contrary.
No, it's a fun rap. I actually do like. Compared to the I'm Going Digital song later in it, I prefer the Digi-Rap for sure.
Yeah, I'll say this. I said that the theme is more indicative of the show than Butterfly is, but Braveheart, not to be confused with the Mel Gibson movie of the same name, is a better insert song than most of the Shuki Levy stuff.
Yeah. No, I like that Braveheart song a good deal. But don't worry, you will hear Butterfly at the end of this, just like it's at the end of the movie. But yeah, so this film, it starts over the logos. You get to hear a growl of a monster, which I really like that. It shows how intense this is going to be. And I only have a couple clips I'm going to play from this because mainly it's honestly it's a pretty quiet movie too, but also in Japanese. And I'll note the big parts where I saw the dub alter from this too. But after a flash of light, you get to see where he plugged in the very brief framing device of showing 11-year-old Taichi saying like, oh, this happened several years ago. And then boom, you're done. Honestly, it could be completely cut out. You don't need it at all other than to connect it to the TV series, just so you know that this is the Taichi and Hikari, or Tai and Kari, from the TV series. When I watched this, so until you shared the file with me, Devin, I had never seen this version, the original version of this, and the first strains of Bolero coming in, like, that instantly grabbed me. I was like, ooh, this is a little smarter than I thought.
I agree. And speaking of music, I did want to jump in here. You were talking about the soundtrack before, Henry, for the American version. What I didn't realize is, like, it's not just Smash Mouth. All-Star.
It is, yeah.
It is All-Star.
It is literally All-Star.
And I was like, I was just looking up, like, what Smash Mouth song was on it? There's 2 total Smash Mouth songs, right? No, like, when that movie was in Shrek, I'm like, well, this is an old song. It was used in Mystery Men first. The video for the song is a Mystery Men video.
Yes, yeah.
And then it was used in Digimon, and then it was used in Shrek.
It's, I guess it was in this just 7 months before Shrek came out and made it truly iconic.
But it's no Bolero.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the original, if you haven't seen the original, you really should, because it's a lot more, atmospheric. It's a lot more, atmospheric is the best way I would describe the original short compared to the westernized version.
Yeah, I think too, you can, like, he gives so much room to breathe. Like, a moment can just happen and be quiet. I mean, that especially is not the case in the dub version of it, or the English dub of it. Though I also think there's something in Hosoda's Digimon work that is about, like, the fear or a concern that kids are looking at screens too much.
Oh, yeah.
It just starts with, like, the dead eyes of Hikari, this, like, 4-year-old staring at a screen.
Kind of gave me Poltergeist vibes, honestly.
Oh, yeah, me too. This is before we had the term, like, screen time.
Oh, yeah.
Little Billy's had too much screen time today. For me, screen time was just like whenever mom was away. Just hug the TV, love it, kiss it.
And we turned out TV.
Yes.
Poltergeist. Wow, I think you are really onto something there, because Poltergeist as well was a response to, like, are we letting our kids watch too much TV? Like,
I forgot it was like a takedown of bad boomer parents.
Yeah, the parents are like, oh, we got stoned. We are bad. We failed them.
We built our house on top of an Indian burial ground.
Yeah. We just didn't know. We just want to be homeowners. Yeah. I also love that the computer is Taichi's dad's, like, because a kid in 1999, they don't own their own computer.
They've got a nice little computer room, and that reminds me of when the computer room was like just a fixture of the American home. Yeah. You need a room to house that computer.
Now computers are everywhere, and you cannot escape them.
I do love by the way, the Tim and Eric song, I'm turning your bedroom back into the computer room.
Oh, I haven't heard that one.
It's great.
And instantly in the dub, you can see the difference here, because as Hikari is up late watching the computer, and it's just this kind of silent thing of Taichi going to use the bathroom and then stumbling upon her. It's just all in the dub, Kari constantly going like, oh, and this was a few years ago when I was doing this, and my brother was using the bathroom for the 5th time that night, just like always, and then he came into the bed. I was like, I can see what's happening, please. You don't have to tell me everything.
It's like a commentary track.
Yeah, although I do actually like Kairi's dub voice a lot. I think it's it's cutesy, but I do like it.
Yeah, I will say that her voice is one of my favorite of the voice actors. I don't well, actually, Kari is barely in the Last Adventure movie. Izzy's voice actor also comes back for the Last Adventure dub, which it's funny to hear them, the same actors as in this 1999 dub, doing a modern day dub, which has, a very different style of localization. To hear them act in that way is it's a real trip. It's very different. You can see how much localization has changed just in 20 years.
Yeah, but Mona Marshall is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think like with the way kids watch anime now and how easy it is to access the original stuff, like if a dub differed this much today, there'd be a riot.
Oh, God.
Even for just a kid's cartoon.
Oh, totally.
I mean, part of the of old internet was, hey, you remember that cartoon you watched? Well, it was different in another place. Here's all the things you couldn't see.
Oh, yeah. I read so much of the DBZ Uncensored website that had all the screenshots they couldn't show you.
Too hot for TV.
Hiffle,
Roshi really didn't pull his pants up that high.
That blue water was beer. It was beer, I tells you.
But the kid designs are just so cute. They're so small and adorable. Like I think Hikari is supposed to be, 4, but she looks 2. She is like so little.
What I like about this animation style, especially his, like everything has so much like weight to it, like realistic weight. They don't feel as much like weightless, cartoony characters. Everything is moving around as it should. I really enjoy that.
Right, and when you see like the little toddler Kyrie and Tai running around, they look like little jelly beans or bean bags almost, like they're flopping around and jumping everywhere.
Yeah, they do feel like the way an awkward child would move. Unlike, this is something they can't on the TV version. You can't have these kind of specific movements and animation to them. Same with the monsters when we see them later. Everybody moves in ways that on a TV budget, you just can't move and get out 52 episodes in a year. And also, I really love how well realized the apartment is. Like, it feels very lived in and very specific of what this you learn a lot about the Yagami family, which I believe it's Kamiya in the English version, but this home feels very realistic of a late 90s apartment in Japan.
And these kids are trusted to be left alone.
Or just latchkey kids just abandoned by their... I do feel like there's a certain level of guilt being sent the way of the parents in this movie. But yes, we watched the birth of a digital egg from a digital world. And I have the feeling that Hosoda and his team, they just played around with a Digimon device for a little bit and saw like, okay, yeah, you get an egg and then it hatches and it becomes this thing and that thing and that thing. And over the course of a day or so, I think they understood how that progression could work as a story.
And how important the pooping is.
Oh, God, so much poop. So, yeah, we do a cut to the next morning. It's Taichi and Hikari are watching the egg being birthed. And then it's the next morning and the mom just leaves. She's like, kids, gotta go. Tai is 7 and Kari is 4. And it's like, you're like, okay, 7-year-old babysitter, you can make breakfast. But the way Tai is able to just deal with breakfast, it's like, oh, I guess it is that easy for him. He must.
Speaking of, I just want to say that this is one of the scenes where it's kind of, the joke is kind of ruined in the dub, because in the original, we get a scene where Tai looks to the door, looks to see his sister with the egg in her like clutches. Then it immediately cuts to a fried egg on a stovetop. And, the joke is obviously supposed to be, oh, no, did he actually cook the egg? No, it's a total fake out. The egg is fine. It's right there in his sister's lap. But in the dub, it happens too fast. He's just like, Mom, I want to go out with my friends. Oh, the egg, it hatched. Then it cuts to the egg and it's too fast. Like, then it just cuts way too quickly to, man, this egg tastes a lot better than that one, huh?
I know. Yeah. And he says, what if I'd cooked that one? I'm just kidding. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's just... The cut from looking at her holding the egg in such a cute way to an egg cooking is such a great like film editing. Like, it's just really well done. And that the dub like fucks with it. And it's too bad. I also really like the very like kind of Peanuts choice of, you don't see the parents' faces. This is a kid's story. The parents are at a distance for you. So I think they're making a statement with the mom here that she's just like, I gotta go somewhere. You guys take care of yourself. Like, she's not a good parent you're supposed to feel, I think.
I think you're casting judgment on this busy working mother.
Maybe.
This homemaker.
I don't know.
I was left alone when I was 7 or 8.
I feel like she should at least like look her kids in the eyes and be like, hey, so you take care of her and whatever. But instead she's like, gotta go. Like, she doesn't even see him in the morning.
Don't play with the stove. I'm out.
Though the dub turns the mom into the target of a rich Hollywood wife's obsession with new age health food. That's what
she's
they
gonna
do.
Go by. I didn't watch the dub of this, by the way.
Honestly, I actually like dub Ty's mom more than the original because I think that's a funnier bit than just, oh, I'm a simple housewife. Like in the original, Ty's just like, oh, she's making curry at some point, and in the new dub, it's like, oh, good, she burned it.
Yes, yeah, I do like that. Yeah, there's at least some good bad cooking jokes, which let them pull out like the Milton Berle joke book about bad cooking. Or also like in Children's War, they just change her making oolong tea into like crazy smoothies that are gross, of just like, oh, it's a gross health smoothie. And the joke is that Izzy in the Japanese version, he drinks too much tea and has to go pee. I didn't mean to rhyme. But in the dub version, he drinks the mom's gross fake health food, and that makes him sick and have to run to the bathroom.
See, that's a funnier joke to me.
Yeah, I do like that. But I feel like all of those health food jokes are Hollywood writers complaining about their wives and the new like yoga kick there.
She's making me eat a rice cake over here.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I'm not saying that's a negative thing. I just think it's funny. Also, the idea of him cooking her an egg that is followed up on in the one episode that Hosoda directed of the TV series where Taichi makes her an omelet as well. So he cooks a lot for her. Now, it's one thing to say, if I was a parent, I'd do this. And being a parent, but seriously, if I was a parent, I would not give a 4-year-old a whistle. Never in my life would I do that.
It seems like she found this whistle and she's not letting it go.
I guess so.
She's gonna bury it like Marge buried the bongos in the strobe light in the Ray Stevens album. There's not a yard to bury things in Japan when you're living in a high-rise apartment,
yeah,
so
right.
you can't hide anything.
You just got to put it just straight in the incinerator then, with all the other trash. No, I mean, it's very cute, her with the whistle. But I was just thinking like, God, a kid who has a whistle all the time, I'd hate it.
As a guy who works at a Walmart and right next to the bike section, you would not believe how many kids just do so much with the freaking air horns over there.
Oh, God. Jesus. That sounds awful. I'm sorry for you. Thank you for your service.
Don't you have like a prison in every Walmart you could put them in? That's what I've heard.
I wish, but no, unfortunately not.
Darn.
Canada is apparently too progressive.
It's kind of cute, though, to see Ty being... I'm just going to use the English names now. It's quicker to say. Ty being kind of a surrogate parent to his little sister is cute in that he's making her a meal, or he's like, he put her up in her high chair, all these things. Like, I don't know. When I was 7, I could not have been trusted to do that for my little brother.
It made me think the dad was like not around anymore.
Well, I mean, that's like Pokemon, there's never dads around. In the mother games, dad is a phone,
It's true.
Yeah.
I did mention this before, but there was an episode much later on in the series where Ty accidentally almost killed Kairi because she was sick and he took her out to play sports with him.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, it seems like that is his closest relationship in the series, I think. Like, and Kairi, she becomes a Digidestined as well over time. I wonder if it was like the success of this made them want to Green Ranger her into the mid-season new member of the team kind of deal.
I'm sure it was that. It was also probably just that, they saw that we had to introduce a new character and they decided, do we have any other characters that we could use? What if we just use Ty's little sister? That's a good one.
And man, there's so much cute animation with little Kairi here of like when, just like a dumb baby would do, she reaches for the cup and drops the egg without realizing it, and just the way she searches around just looks like how a baby does stuff. It seems very well observed, and if not rotoscoped, then the same with the cat. The cat later moves so much like a real cat, it feels rotoscoped. But her chasing after the egg is really cute animation while whistling at the same time. And the chase around for the egg is really great. I also love the little detail that on their coffee table is just an ashtray in the middle. Like, it's not remarked upon. It's just slice of life back in 1999.
I'm going to assume that's for the dad.
I would guess, yeah.
It's for the whole family.
We do see that the dad drinks, and he drinks regularly later on.
Yeah, and I mean, are you going to go to a bar in Japan and not smoke as you're drinking? Like, I don't think so.
He probably reeks when he comes home.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's got to fit in the office, too, Bob. It's a hard life being a salary man. But so the egg rolls away. Tai catches like, oh my gosh, the egg's down. And then he sees the egg start to hatch, pretty much in a good adaptation of what in a 16 by 16 pixel version of an egg hatching looks like in the game toy. The monster then like comes out as a Bodomon and it smashes right into Taichi's face. Hosoda in that 2001 interview said he wanted to contrast Tai and Kari as Tai is rejecting these things. He's like, this can't be, it's got to be something else, while Kari fully accepts it. And it's about like Tai is listing all of these things like, well, is it a cat? Is it a dog? Like he's trying to classify it while Kari just accepts what it is. Also really well observed animation of the Bodomon just hides under a bed. Like if you were to take in a wild animal into your house, it would do the same thing. Get its back against whatever wall it could get.
I really like the animation of the thing and how it just crawls around the ground. And you got to wonder, like, how does the thing move? Does it got like little legs or?
Yeah, it's funny. They were left with a design of like, well, in the game box, it's just for a little bit of time, a dark shadow, and it's just like a black blob. So animate that. Do something with a black blob.
It seems like that'd be the most fun thing to animate. Just it's a lot simpler. There's no arms or legs or like walk cycles to worry about.
All it can do is gloop around and blow bubbles, which is what it can do in the game as well when you do the, as I saw trying to do the practice matches.
Although I swear I saw an AMV Hell skit where it was this scene, but he jumps out of the egg and it's set to the Xenomorph egg hatching, like, audio track.
That'd be good. I should check that. It actually, yeah, you're right. It does have the same feel as the chest burster running away. And in the subtitled version, Kari makes a connection with the monster while blowing on her whistle. In the dub version, they actually do a little song together in this clip.
Bow, 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 bow.
Oh, really now? I thought it was going to be, it's been 1 week. Since that song's in this movie too.
Yes, yeah, but not here yet.
The soundtrack is just now, that's what I call music. I didn't know the track listing was so just every hit song from those like few years surrounding this movie.
I'm just imagining Kyrie going, this is the theme to my favorite television show.
Yeah.
You should watch it. It's on every Saturday mornings.
It's fun and corny that they play their own song in their world in a way that doesn't make sense for like canonically. Also seeing this kid's room, I want one of those kids hiragana charts because I was actually learning while looking at that. I was like, oh, that's the word for rainbow. Okay. A 4-year-old knows more Japanese than me, but I'm getting close. I'm catching up with the 4-year-old. And yeah, so as they're trying to figure out the name for the thing, Kari is feeding a bunch of chocolate to the Digimon. And so in the fan sub of it that you shared, Devin, it says Black Devil as a name that Tai brings up. But I swear it sounds like in Japanese he says Chocolate Devil, which would be a pun because he's also eating a whole bunch of chocolate in the scene.
I heard Black Devil, like the English language words Black Devil.
All right, man, I wanted to hear what I wanted
Chocolate
to hear.
Devil.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's eating all the chocolate.
I mean, that could also work. I don't know. Sometimes fan subbers, they tend to take too many liberties themselves, honestly.
I will say when I found the Children's War one, that had some real classic throwback subtitles that the person put on it of just like...
Fuck!
Yeah. No swears, but about like, this word actually means computer or whatever. I'm like, then just fucking write computer.
Nakama
guy.
is way different than friend, buddy. I got 5 paragraphs to show you before this episode starts.
TL note, Lucia's move here is actually illegal.
I know it is. Don't email me. I know it's illegal, but this is the word. If you don't like it, then just subtitle it yourself. The little blob then, as Tai turns away, turns into a Koromon, the cute little pink thing. And it's just so adorable the way Hikari hugs it. Like when Tai turns away to go to the phone with the dial-up noises coming out of it, he comes back and Hikari is still hugging it in the same way, except now it is this pink little blob instead of a black little blob. And
these children are starved of love with these busy parents.
It's actually one difference in the dub that I want to mention is that in the sub, Ty picks up the phone and it's just like there's nothing there. It's just static. But he picks up the phone and it's Sora on the other line, and it very much greatly implies that no, these kids all kind of knew each other even before the whole summer camp incident, which is kind of true, but I never really saw it that way, honestly.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, that line that Sora says is like, I know it's you who threw up in my hat. That's that is called back in the dub for our war games in the next part, where Tai is apologizing to her and saying, this is almost as bad as the time I threw up in your hat and lied about it. Like, so they're at least layering in this silly idea that like Tai vomiting in a hat happened.
This is some bizarre continuity.
Yes.
I do like his line, though, when he's just like, oh, the phone's cutting out. Perfect timing.
Yes, that is a great line, which, again, not in the subtitle version. When Ty walks away in Japanese, he's just kind of making the sound of dial-up with his mouth, which is kind of cute. I like that. But, and yeah, Koromon, super cute. And I like that Ty can't believe it, and the way Koromon just moves around is so great. They can't do this in the TV version. Like, they just have to hop around pretty simply, but the way it like uses its ears as arms to hug around you and just jump around.
It's a real face hugger too.
And yes, it poops immediately, which is, you'll be cleaning up a lot of poop in your Digimon toys. So I'm glad they kept that in. Like, that feels real, man.
That's a joke in the dub version that I like better than the original, where it's like, in the original, it's just like, oh, I guess we have this thing now. Oh, it pooped. Whereas in the dub, it's more, the joke is, man, this can't get any worse. It just got worse.
I will say that's a better line. Yeah.
I do like the understated, like, oh, it pooped. Like,
oh yeah, it poops.
Okay, yeah, that's also funny then.
The other one was like a real like, check please.
I also like the Taichi, as it eats all the food, he then gives the cat food, but says like, it's not going to eat it. But the Koromon likes it so much that he like, its eyes are sparkling and it is ecstatic with joy and has to hug them, with Taichi mistakes for it trying to eat them. And I love how protectively he holds Kari of like, you're not going to eat my little sister, man. It's
and
cute.
While this is happening, for some reason, I think I'm going to watch the Crash Bandicoot 3 trailer. Oh? I mean, Crash Bandicoot 4 trailer, sorry. The joke is they both use the same song.
Oh, yes.
Really? Soul Brother right about now.
Thank you. I almost forgot.
Okay, I was deeply confused.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
No, when the Koromon attacks him in the English version, out of nowhere, the Fatboy Slim song, the Rockefeller Skank, starts blaring over it. And it
also plays in the Crash 4 trailer.
I had forgotten that was in the Crash 4 trailer. But
oh my God, this album is crazy.
It's an insane album, and it feels incredibly wrong for the scene to the point that it's hilarious. But yeah,
I want to know when the Mighty Mighty Boss Stones kick in.
I think it's late in the second movie. I think it is. All I know is that All Star is the last song you hear before the credits song. That's that's the one playing over the happy ending at the end of the Digimon movie. But yeah, when Koromon and Miko the cat fight over the food, which, again, the cat moves perfectly, and I love a good anime cat scratch of the 3 red lines over black.
Yeah, that cat caused some serious damage.
They removed one of those in the dub, actually, which was weird to me, because like in the dub, you see the cat turn around and he scratches Tai, but then it just immediately cuts to him dashing at Koromon. They do the 3 red line scratch, whereas in the sub, you see one of those for Tai and then another one for Koromon.
Yeah, it's weird they cut out that little, it's like 2 seconds of animation. Maybe they felt it's too violent to see 2 of those scratches. It's weird. But if you mess with a cat's food, you're getting the claws, baby.
And in an unrealistic way, I like how the cat is like dragging its food bowl out backwards.
You're right.
Cats wouldn't really do that, but I do enjoy how it looks doing that.
The rest of the chase around the room is very realistic of like, if you were to have a new strange cat come in a cat's home, it would chase around that new cat a ton and be that kind of asshole to it. Except, yes, when it leaves a room of like, this is my bowl, and just like paws it out. That's great.
And Henry, you were ragging on this mom before, but she brought cake.
I think
she's like, I'm back and cake has arrived.
I think that's just a mom overcompensating guiltily.
It was because of that I got Nintendo and cable TV. It was great.
I like to think that cat fighting Koromon is symbolically real pets getting revenge on digital pets replacing them.
Think of all the pets that got neglected because of Digimon.
I mean, I do like the line that Ty gives after it in both the sub and the dub, where in the sub he says something to the extent of, man, you can't even defeat a cat, huh? Whereas in the dub he says something to the extent of, man, we make a pretty lousy team, huh?
Oh yeah.
And both of those to me, I think, indicate, kind of what happens in the future in different ways, obviously.
Yeah. I like how he says to Koromon, like, I think in the dub he even calls them a tag team. Like, we're a pretty lousy tag team. And it's important to note here for future continuity in the Digimon series, while this is a Koromon that turns into an Agumon and then a Greymon, these are not the Koromon, Agumon, Greymon that Tai befriends in the series. These are separate monsters from them.
See, I don't like that, honestly, because that just kind of takes away some of the, importance of it to me. I like to imagine that after this film, which they disappear after this film, Koromon and Greymon disappear after this film, I like to imagine that he died, but when you die in the digital world, you don't really die. Your digital data just goes back to the garden where you get reborn as an egg. So I like to imagine that when Greymon disappears, he goes back to the digital world and he turns back into an egg.
You become the .egg file.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. I figured they would make this a separate one because Agumon does some stuff that they wouldn't want on the conscience of the regular Agumon.
Okay, yeah, maybe that was on their minds.
Yeah, but the death and rebirth, that would, absolve him of that sin. He already died. Like, you can't blame him for it. So this is the one English and Japanese comparison clip I have here, just because it's pretty easy to tell what it sounds like for Koromon to say its own name in Japanese. But so here is the introduction scene where Tai learns that Koromon can speak.
Hi, his name is Koromon.
Whose name?
Koromon, what are you anyway? I'm a Digimon, short for digital monster. I'm from the digital world.
How come you talk to him and only whistle at me?
コロモンも食べたいって。なんだって？コロモン。なんだコロモンって。そいつに名前つけたのか？コロモンは僕の名前だよ。
I like the little gruff, tough guy kitty voice it has, and more than the dub. The dub is fine. I'm surprised they actually scored the movie. It sounds like they actually scored it with instruments, not just like the typical Saban keyboard droning over all dialogue.
Right. Yeah.
I can take either one, honestly. I actually kind of like the dub's more cutesy voice than the original, but maybe because I'm just not a big fan of the whole I kind of sound sort of like this voice. I can take or leave that.
That raspy voice is just cute monster voice in Japan.
Yeah, it's like that's what Pikachu sounds like, just like the raspy cute voice.
Watching this also did make me have the desire to make curry last night, and I did for dinner. So, but yeah, in the dub, she's making liver sticks, which he's happily not going to eat. But yeah, the voice of Koromon is Chika Sakamoto, and that is the same voice actor who does Agumon in the Japanese version of the show too. And the other big role that Sakamoto played was Noriko in Fushigi Yugi. So at least there's some consistency of having Agumon's voice be the same. That's another thing though too. I will give it to Saban. Their script does a much better job of building brand names and explaining brands to children, because throughout this whole thing, the kids act natural in Japanese, which is the animal introduces itself as Koromon and never tells them it has a new name when it becomes Agumon because it doesn't talk. So they're calling him Koromon the whole time. That as a brand is terrible. You need to start saying different names. So having this Koromon in English say, I'm Koromon, a Digimon from the digital world. That's the kind of backstory you need
also,
for toys.
Flashing on the screen, Saturdays at 9:30. Yeah. Saturdays at 9:30.
Also, it does later on say, I'm Greymon now.
He does, yes, a completely added bit
a
of
different
dialogue.
toy.
And when they're hugging Koromon and saying it's a sign of friendship, I wish there was a hug button in my original Digimon. I'm sad. I can fix their problems and put on a bandage, but I can't hug them.
You can't even do that in Pokemon, which honestly, that's the thing that bugs me about a lot of the newer Pokemon games, is that they'll let you, touch your screen and, fiddle around with a little toy or whatever, but you can't have your character in the game physically walk up and pet or hug a Pokemon.
It's Kirby games are on the right track with a dedicated hug button.
I never liked that Pokemon like rubbing system because it just is like a version that was invented for like the wife rubbing system in those porn games, you know. And Fire Emblem. It's like you can pet your wife's head.
I choose to think of them as Nintendogs. I don't like to think about the waifu thing.
I guess Nintendogs came first, but did Fire Emblem still do like the rub your wife's head bit?
No, they only did that for Fates. I'm pretty sure they don't have that for Three Houses.
No, Three Houses just has a up close and personal photograph mode, but you don't touch them.
That was a weird little moment in game design. I'm glad we're beyond that.
Honestly, hot take, I'm kind of glad they removed that from the localization of Fates. But that's an entirely different topic.
Oh man, you're gonna get a lot of people mad at you for that one on the internet. No, I think it was
believe me, I know.
I think it was very right to remove that. It's weird to touch people on. Okay, we'll talk about Fire Emblem for a sec. Fire Emblem, they're in this weird situation where they got more successful than ever by making a waifu game, but when they follow the path of like, well, yeah, we're making a waifu game, this is what all the other ones do, which are you take pictures of their boobs and you rub their hair. Like, this is what you do. When they make it in a Nintendo game, though, people are shocked and they're like, whoa, you can't do that in a Nintendo game.
I mean, now that they have a mobile game, they can just offload all that stuff onto that platform, which is what it was designed for, and just make the games a little less smutty, I think.
I think Nintendo hit the right mark where they realized, no, we should just make Persona. Just make Fire Emblem Persona.
And boy, Tokyo Mirage Sessions, not everybody played it, but I had a good time with that straight up Persona game.
I should play that sometime.
Well, same. I've heard those Cyber Sleuth Digimon games are really good too. I've not given them a shot.
Yeah, those Cyber Sleuth games, they are also very Persona-like. And I will say this much. The reason why I don't play a lot of Digimon games nowadays, despite being a fan, obviously, is because I'm honestly more of a fan of Persona than Digimon right now. And those games are just better to me.
If you're going to set aside 100 hours for one of them, then it'll just be Persona.
Well, thankfully, they make one every 9 years. So you can squeeze in a lot between them.
But they make the same one 4 times over those 9 years as well.
I'm waiting for the second Persona 5 redo to actually play it.
It's got to be on Switch soon, right?
Localized strikers, goddammit!
Right? What the? Okay. Anyway, enough video game talk.
Hey, this is all related to a video game, so it's fine. If you're listening to this, you probably like Japanese video games.
So Tai befriends the Koromon finally and accepts the hug, and that's when it poops again. I will say in the English version, it is a more resounding poop sound of the, but both make a little fart noise. So that's the end of that, like, first half of it. When it enters the next part, we get establishing shots of the apartment complex, just so you really understand where the coming battle is about to be. And the digital world starts invading in some more as, like, clocks start messing up and the tea kettle goes crazy. I wonder why the Yagamis own so many clocks. It's like they're Doc Brown up in here.
I like having smart devices and, laptops and whatever, but I kind of like this era of technology, especially like Japanese gadgets and things like that. I like how everything was like designed industrially and how it looks.
It's nice to have a dedicated Digimon machine instead of just an app on my phone. It feels different to just have, oh no, this is a physical device I hold in my hand. And as we're cutting around the apartment complex, as things are starting to happen, you see a couple quick shots, and you'll see a little more of them, of more of the Tamers from the first season. And in the show, they do address the coincidence of, like, you all lived in the same apartment complex and then went to the same summer camp to become Digidestined.
Man, it's Final Fantasy VIII up in here.
It is, yeah. Yeah, actually, I guess those came out around the same time, didn't they?
Yep, same year.
One thing, maybe the biggest cut from the dub, is the appearance of the drunk father coming home. Like, that's not in the dub at all.
You know what? I really like this as part of the original because it is just like part of the slice of life. That's not like, so if there was a drunk dad in this English version, it would be about that. Like, dad's drunk, we got to talk about it. Now it's like, well, no, this is just part of his life. He just went out drinking with his colleagues, which is part of like Japanese work culture. And he's coming home and the mom's like, oh God, you're drunk again. No, don't wake up the kids. Come on, you're embarrassing me. It's not like, I mean, it might be some degree of alcoholism, but it's the kind that's accepted by society.
Yes.
I'm trying to imagine, like, what excuse would they give in the dub if they actually decide to adapt the scene? Like, would they say, "Oh, your father hit his head on his way home, and I think he's getting a bit dizzy right now."
Dad had too much candy.
Good. Yeah, he's
Sugar rush.
Sugar. Yeah, you're right, Bob. It becomes in America, your dad coming home drunk in a kid's show is a very special episode. It's not a joke. So to do it, I can see why they would just sidestep that and cut it. But in context here, I like that it's like both sweet and tragic, because I see it as this dad who, again, never sees his children, has to be at work from like 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. because like everybody else is going out for drinks. You got to do it too.
And I get the feeling that like he was just like bragging about his kids to his like workmates, and he wants to come home and see him give him kisses. He's like, I was just bragging about you guys that I never get to see.
I love his sing-song way of saying their names, like Daichi, Hikari. It's cute. But then, yeah, you're right. The mom does say this happens a lot, or there's definitely the implication this is not the first time he's come home drunk.
Stumbled home in the mood for love, as Homer said.
Then, in opportune time, Koromon turns into Agumon, which Hosoda's interpretation, 1, doesn't speak, and 2, is much bigger than the cute knee-high Agumon that we see in the regular series.
I like how he just becomes more of an animal.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't talk. He's just, like, taking wild swings at things he sees.
I like how in the dub they give him a much deeper voice than they do in the show, whereas, in the show he's very, "Hey, Ty, how's it going?" And in this, he's more like, "Rrr." I mean, that's all he does is he just grunts in agreement with Kairi.
Oh man, the dub voice of Agumon, I love it, but also just chuckle of just like goes, "Ty, what are we gonna do?" Like he's more than a little of Davy and Goliath voice there.
I want, like, in the series, is it Agumon, right?
Yeah.
They don't even name him in the Japanese, do they? I don't think so.
Oh, I mean, in the TV series they do.
No, in the
they never say his name.
Okay, sorry,
No.
but like. I'm surprised there's no like moment at the end of this where it's like, well, that was a few years ago, but he never says, like, my memory might have some continuity issues that conflict with what you see later on television, so just ignore that, because I don't think they explain away like, well, why is he not big anymore?
Yeah, it takes like 30 episodes and then they explain it in the show.
I didn't know.
Well,
that.
again, the explanation is that this is not the same Agumon, even though I don't like that explanation. It's a different Agumon entirely.
Just like how there are like multiple Yoshis floating around, but there's only one Yoshi.
Yeah, sure.
Same with like there's Toad and then there's the Toad. In the dub, again, for clarity, I think they overdo it and over-explain everything, but Kari actually does do good for clarity of saying, now guys, just so you know, this isn't the Agumon we meet later, okay? This one was bigger. She says, he got bigger than my Uncle Fred at Thanksgiving.
So Hikari's Uncle Fred.
Yes.
Okay. Why does this Japanese family have an Uncle Fred?
It's a long story. Let's
I guess your dad had a brother who moved to America and changed his name.
Yeah. Or, he's an honorary uncle. He's like one of the family.
It's a Japanese name, Fredici.
And of course, in Tokyo, you invite Fred over to Thanksgiving, which you definitely celebrate.
Dad met him out on one of his walks when he was,
enjoying candy.
Maybe it's like uncle in the sense it's like it's one of your mom's male friends. Uncle Fred.
Uncle Fred.
He always comes around when Dad's out drunk.
But yeah, it leads to some fun classic kids film stuff of like, oh no, we've got the monster, but we got to hide it from the parents.
It's downright Spielbergian, I will say.
You're right, yeah.
That and Poltergeist. Now I'm thinking, I guess Hosoda took a lot of inspiration from Spielberg.
I think
and
so.
The dinosaurs too.
Oh yeah, these are, especially when he stands up straight for the first time and turns his head, definitely a very Jurassic Park kind of shot.
So it's Jurassic Park, Poltergeist, and E.T.
Yeah, wow. Yep, it's all those things. I really also love, there's so many great shots in this. The shot of Ty holding the door shut while he looks over at Agumon and you can see Agumon reflected in the mirror in the bedroom. Really great shot. And yes, this is also when the mom says to the drunk dad, like, you're always like this. The neighbors are going to hear. There's something beneath the surface there.
Whereas in the dub, I think she just says, "Did you kids break a lamp again?"
More time for jokes there. Same with, so Agumon rises up, Kari jumps on his back and it smashes through the wall and jumps out of the window. And it's played it for much more like terror of just like, oh my God, this baby is attached to this thing that jumped out a window. While in the dub, like Kari laughs as they jump out. And I think it's played a little lighter.
Did they insert some joke when the car gets smashed? I could see like, I had one payment left on that thing.
Well, no, what Ty says is, if mom's upset about the lamp, wait till she sees her car.
Yeah, I didn't watch the dub for this, but I knew that'd be the perfect spot for a zinger.
You're thinking like a localizer now, like a 1999 localizer.
My Volvo.
Also, I will say this much. I don't really like Kairi's, cutesier affectation in the dub where she's just like, let's go play horsey. I do like how Japanese Kairi is a lot more quiet, I guess.
Oh, man, the scenes. So, yeah, after the jump out the window, first off, Ty chases after them. And I have to say, again, maybe I'm being too harsh on these parents, but their 7-year-old just ran out the door into the middle of the night and they're not chasing after him.
They should be opening up that door, seeing their bedroom has been like broken into and the window is open. Their daughter is missing. Their little son is running outside the apartment and into the city. They should be calling the cops.
Dad needs to sober up real quick to help his children here.
He's going to drink some tea real fast and he'll be right back. Yeah, but yes, when it's the shots of Agumon and Kari just walking around, they really let it breathe. It's just like silent, just like the quiet of the stillness and quiet of the night. While meanwhile in the dub, Kari keeps going like, make sure to look both ways. Are you going to wish upon a star? Yeah, and he's silent the rest of the time, except when he throws out fireballs. He still says in the dub, pepper breath.
Well, he calls it pepper flame in this dub for some reason.
What the hell? You're right. He doesn't even say
Well,
the
it's
word.
weird because in the original Japanese, the attack that Agumon has is called baby flame, and in the dub, it's called pepper breath.
Baby flame does localize a little different here, yeah. There's so much great just like mechanical animation of like Agumon just touching the soda machine and putting a hole in it. And
I like how she's grabbing all the cans like as a real kid move. Like, well, these cans are mine now.
Yeah, it's really cute. And it feels very well observed of like, did they get an actual like 3-year-old and tell them to pick up cans and animate it? Also in this viewing, it's when I caught that it's a Family Mart truck that they almost destroy.
We're going to talk about the competing convenience stores.
There's some other good like parodies of their other convenience stores and in other, Lotteria, the burger place in Japan. There's a Natteria they replaced the L with an N for some fun.
There's a joke in here that I like where he almost gets hit by the truck, and it's played a lot more serious in the original where he sees the oncoming headlights. It looks like that the truck, ran him over or something, and then it shows that no, he jumped over it. And in the dub, it's like, did you see that? No, I was asleep. But you're driving.
Oh, yes. Yeah. The drivers, they make an extra joke with the driver.
I like how they're adding characters to this. It's very, very creative.
I mean, that type of joke added in there, how different is that from MST3K? Like, they would have said that exact line over that moment. And yeah, Hikari, I like too that you can see the fear in her face. You're seeing that Kari is starting to go like, uh-oh, this is a wild animal I'm riding on. This isn't like my cute friend anymore.
I do like how, maybe this is unintentional on the dub's part, but I do like how in the dub, she's like really happy and going along and she's having fun with Agumon right up until he destroys the phone booth with his breath. And then she's like, uh-oh, this is dangerous. This thing could actually hurt someone.
And in Hosoda's 2001 interview I read too, he made it a point of like, had things not distracted him, would Agumon have burned that bus full of people?
Yes.
He might have. Like, it was only coincidence that saved it from that. And then he blows up, like, he shoots fire at buildings that must have people in them.
Some at least serious property damage happening to those buildings.
And the Toei animators are using their many skills at destroying cities that they learned in Dragon Ball Z. And we get quick cutaways to characters like Mimi and Izzy. We get to see them waking up to the digital disturbance going on. Then I think this is something that would not fit mechanically in the rules of Digimon going forward, but Parrotmon hatches fully out of an egg, and it's a gigantic egg. Does that fit with the reality of Digimon games?
No, it doesn't. But how I interpret it isn't that it's an egg hatching. It's more just a, bubble from the digital world coming down. Then it just splits open and Paradmon just comes out of it.
That's
how I choose to see it.
Maybe I'm just calling it an egg because that is the joke that Ty says in the dub of like, I'd hate to see the chicken that egg came out of.
Yeah, that's a funny line.
So there's like a surprising amount of violence in this fight. Like, was that toned down at all in the localized version? Because
there's one big cut, and I think you can guess what it is.
Is that when he
fight.
like gores his underbeak?
Yes.
Just like blast the horn through it?
That is cut from the movie dub for the movie version, but not him blasting his wing off. That actually is still in there.
The underbeak is the most dangerous part of the beak. I know this as a bird owner.
That's where they munch you the most?
That's where the power comes from. The top beak is just part of the skull. The underbeak moves around. That's the thing that gets you.
Wow, I'm learning here. Bob, what do you think of Parrotmon? Do you want a Parrotmon toy now after learning about him?
I don't like the muscular arms coming out of him and like the crotch plates.
Oh, I guess he does have a crotch plate.
The cod piece this thing has? What's going on there? But I'm a fan of cool like monster birds. There's going to be some new ones in the new Monster Hunter game, but it's all right. I do like it.
I like its lightning attacks. They're really cool.
That is cool. Yeah, how that's animated, how it just like happens instantly is really neat.
They also give it a voice in the dub, whereas in the original it doesn't talk at all. It just, kind of stands around. I don't think it even squawks really. No, wait. It does give like a bird sort of red tail hawk kind of cry, I think.
Yeah. Again, failure on branding. You need to be saying, people need to know what that is the second they see it.
I'm surprised they didn't say like Polly wants a disaster.
Polly wants a disaster!
There you go.
I can imagine that.
I think Hosoda, though, he wants it to feel weird and strange. You don't know the names of these things.
Yeah, they're just both dangerous animals.
Oh, wait, no. There is a scene where Ty says, Polly want a cracker? A really big cracker?
I figure, you got to think like a localizer in the year 2000.
So yeah, another point Hosoda made in that 2001 interview was he wanted Agumon to kind of start the fight with Parrotmon. Parrotmon appears, but it's Agumon who shoots fire at it. And so that also puts the moral stakes as more ambivalent. He said he wanted it to feel like, if you were going to the jungle and you just happened upon a lion fighting a hyena, you don't know either of them. And you might say like, if you root for one or the other, maybe you would, but you're not like on the side of one instantly. And that's what he wanted you to feel the same for Agumon as well. And
this isn't really communicated well in the show, I think, because we have seen Agumon grow up. We've seen them, train him and everything. Whereas Parrotmon just kind of comes out of nowhere and we're just like, oh, this is a bad one, right? Like, we would have to see Parrotmon get raised by his own group of kids, and then the two would have to fight. And that would make a lot more, stakes involved.
Yeah, Paramount is he's a guy to get beaten. It's just, I feel like they just had a list of what monsters existed and we're like, all right, who would be the best to have a Godzilla type monster fight?
A really cool touch is like when the giant feathers fall in the city, like it just explodes with feathers when it gets hit.
Yeah, there's so many great touches there with the feathers and also Tai and Hikari are so tiny already that when you see the scale of them to the other stuff, it makes them look even bigger. Like it is the kind of ground level view, like Cloverfield ripped this off kind of thing of like, this is what the human sized view of a Godzilla is that you didn't often get in classic Godzilla movies like this is referencing. And the Parrotmon is pretty outmatching Agumon until it then, in response to Parrotmon's attack, it transforms into Red Greymon, or it's just a Greymon, but apparently in the fan community, this specific version is called Red Greymon because it has more red accents to it.
I mean, Digimon are weird in that it's not like Pokemon where Pikachu turns into Raichu all the time. It's like Agumon can turn into Greymon, or he could turn into like another type of Greymon, or even some other third type, depending on how he digivolves. It's weird. It's more like Shin Megami Tensei style of demon fusion than anything, honestly.
Yeah, you're right. The kind of randomness of that too, that you don't, until you fuse them together, you don't really know. So the transformation 2, in the interview in 2001, Hosoda was like, I wanted ambiguity there too. Is this a wild animal that just got bigger to fight something else? Or is it actually their friend and tried to save them? Like, it's not explicit either way. And as the next level of the fight begins, that's where Bolero pipes in again. And you see that Red Greymon, the way it charges up its breath and like screams, that is straight out of episode 1 of Evangelion. Is what
perfect,
it feels
yeah.
to me. And it looks, man, the shot of it walking over Taichi is like, that is the perfect shot. Like, that is just amazing. I absolutely understand why they show it at the start of the movie and at the and when it appears naturally.
Again, it definitely has a Jurassic Park feeling to it of, these two children cowering in fear as this giant monster goes lumbering above them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it looks almost taken directly from like a shot of a T-Rex running by or whatever. And in the movie, in English, this is where the Digimon theme starts piping in because the fight has begun. While in Japanese, it is played a lot quieter on just, it's Bolero. And as it turns into the sumo battle, I also like the mechanics of he blasts off the wing of Parrotmon, so that way it can't fly away. And yes, that is where the horn stabs through the jaw of Parrotmon, which is like harsh and grisly, and but it's also like, well, I guess you would see that in like the wild nature out there. But the dub cuts that out. I have a feeling they'd be PG-13 if they'd kept it in.
Yeah, there's no blood, but it is like slightly shocking to see in this kid's thing.
And so Greymon, though, still gets overwhelmed by it. Kari is like sobbing tears. Like it's again so well done of like a kid crying, and you just see like the mucus stream out of her face. And
it's a really great ugly cry.
Yeah, I wrote ugly cry in my notes, and she's so like just spewing fluids she can't blow her whistle correctly.
And I also like there's a moment where he looks at Parrotmon and looks at Red Greymon, and he has to choose, like, I guess I'll go with the devil I know and start supporting Greymon in this instead of
Greymon for president.
Oh boy.
And yeah, he then pulls on the whistle, and so Greymon gets knocked down. Seemingly he's taken out, and Parrotmon is gonna kill everybody. And that's when Hikari, failing at the whistle, Taichi grabs it from her and blows. And boy, does he blow. And not only does it wake up Greymon, but it also gets the attention of the future Digi-destined pals he's going to know.
This is a change in the dub that I'm not quite sure about, where in the dub, Sora sees this and she's just like, go get him, Tai. Whereas in the original, it's like, that boy.
I think that one works better, that boy one, yeah.
Yeah. I think the implication there is supposed to be that they don't know each other yet. They just happen to be in the same location.
Yeah. I like that more. Yeah.
Well, and all the kids watching it, like, they're seeing some serious stuff there. As when Hosoda, he says the whistle was meant to represent Taichi connecting to the digital world, and that's why he'll be pulled into the digital world in the first episode. Him blowing the whistle that hard is that's when he truly connects with Greymon, and that's why it joins the fight to defend him. And that whistle moment is called back so many times just in the small amount of Digimon cartoons I watched over this week, including in spoilery, I won't say what happens, but Last Adventure uses it really well as a callback.
See, I remember it happening in our war game near the end where, again, spoilers, I won't really get into it, but there is a scene where Agumon or Greymon is, injured, and Tai says, I don't have a whistle, so I can't bring you back. And I thought that was kind of a weird... I don't know if that was in the original, honestly. I think they might have just added that to the dub to connect it back to this one.
I think so, yeah. Though most Digimon stories follow this arc of the Digimon you like is taken out and then needs to be given a second wind by support of his friends. And so the whistle blown, iconic moment. It comes back to life. Bolero comes back in as hard as possible, and we get a big Godzilla Mega Breath death for Parrotmon. In the dub version, it's where the song "I'm Going Digital" pipes in. I believe an original song written for it.
Okay, didn't sound like an existing hit.
I'm going digital. I believe that played in the series itself at several times. Like they always had different songs that played when like the action kicked in and the good guys were winning. Like there was "You Run Around, I Run Around, na 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 na," and there was also "Let's Kick It Up." You know those songs.
I see. Okay.
So not a Marcy Playground original.
So a crazy thing I learned in the TV series is that to explain away this destruction in the real world, no one films these monsters fighting. There's no record of them, or they can't see them. And so they call it a terrorist attack. Like a terrorist attack happened at Highton Gardens or Highton Towers, and you all had to move to different places. Yeah.
So here's an interesting fact then. Digimon 02 takes place in 2002, which makes me wonder, no, that's maybe a bit too dark.
I see a conspiracy theory video being made out of this. Somebody, if The Simpsons could predict it, I feel like Digimon could too.
Boy.
That's dark, but yes.
It's just the final shot of Parrotmon, getting blasted away. That's such like a epic Dragon Ball Z-esque moment of just, it reminds me of Final Cell almost.
Yeah.
The final exchange between Teen Gohan and Perfect Cell.
Totally, yeah. I mean, honestly, it could be the same people who drew it. Some of the same people who drew it could be drawing that shot. Toei knows how to do an ultimate blast. They are masters of it. And so then, even in the Japanese version, VO comes in after the fight's over and there's just like ash and dust everywhere. Tai says, that would be the first time I'd see them, but they shouldn't exist in my world. And I had to go to their world. And then boom, it's over. But in the dub version, since this is just the end of the first 20 minutes of the film, they then have to have a Kari still say, but then other things happened. And then like 5 years later, it was the summertime and my brother did this. But in the credits here, in the original Japanese version, they play the opening song, the banger Butterfly, sung by the late Koji Wada. Sadly, he passed away in 2016 from cancer. But man, the song rules. I love that song so much. I never really listened to it when it was new. I would have loved it in 99. I think probably I would. I just sneered even at the idea of a good song from Digimon in Japan. I was like, nah, not listening.
Yeah. Butterfly is a great song. It's a very good song. Again, not to be confused with the Crazy Town song.
Again, or DDR. There's many Butterfly songs.
And it's a very touching animation of 11-year-old Tai petting his friend Greymon. But I have a feeling they animated that without knowing that the anime opening would be playing over it.
Yeah.
I don't think. But it works. It's fine. It's a sweet moment with a upbeat anime opening over it.
I mean, if there's one thing about this that you talked about, Henry, that really kind of confused me, it was Hosoda's insistence on that this is, meant to be two animals going at. You're not supposed to really root for either one, which I don't think it really accomplishes that, especially with the series canon and proper, where the series is more or less just like, there are evil Digimon that want to destroy the world, and these kids are going out to stop them with their good Digimon. So in that context, I don't think it really works. Really, it's Tamers that accomplishes that, sentiment more, in my opinion.
Yeah, also, only within the context of the movie, if you just look at it in a vacuum, you're given time to, relate to Koromon and Nagumon or whatever, the many Mons this character achieves. You don't get that with Parrotmon. Parrotmon just appears. So you give more time to relate to this character than the other character in the movie that it fights.
Just makes me imagine that Parrotmon is dying and he goes, I had a dream, and that dream was to kill all humans. Is that so wrong?
Who's the real 60-foot tall parrot monster here?
Not I. We'll just do the whole scene.
Yeah, no, I think this short film as a monster movie is really, really great. As a commercial for the property of Digimon, I think it actually doesn't do that good a job of it.
It misrepresents what Digimon is in many ways, but that's why I enjoyed it, because I'm not really into Digimon. It's cool. I just didn't grow up with it, but I think you could still watch this because the director is so great. It's just a fun, kid's perspective of a monster movie kind of thing that can exist on its own.
Oh, definitely. That's honestly why I picked this episode, because, it is Mamoru Hosoda, who is a great director, and I hope you guys talk about him more, because this is partially why I picked this one.
Oh no, you definitely opened a door to the digital world of and by digital world I mean the Blu-rays that hold Hosoda films on them. Yeah, no, I hadn't watched enough of his stuff, and this really gave me so much more appreciation for him. I especially do like that he, like a lot of my favorite animators, they get their start working on other people's properties and then eventually work their way up to making their own stuff. But what they're able to pull off with something no one would have cared if they tried hard on is really good to me. Is very impressive. I like a lot. And this did give me appreciation, not just for playing with the toy Digimon, but as a daily television series. Original Digimon is some fun, and I do like that it actually goes there, man.
And in America, it's on Hulu, right?
Yeah,
the
original
whole stuff.
Only the dub, can't watch the sub. But yeah, it's all on Hulu.
But
1, 2, and Tamers, I believe.
Was the original sub ever localized or released?
I don't think
I think it's like Pokemon.
I believe it was on Netflix for a bit, but they wound up using, but there was some weird thing going on where they wound up using a fan sub for it, which is weird.
That's Yu-Gi-Oh! They just are here, uncut Yu-Gi-Oh! With subtitles, but maybe Digimon skews a little younger and they don't want to do that. But now I do know the current reboot, the 2020 reboot, that is simulcast subbed on Crunchyroll, so that's still available.
And I watched the first 3 episodes of it. If you're a fan of the original, it's interesting how they kind of play with your expectations. Like in the 3rd episode, they're like, let's go to summer camp. And then at the end of it, they don't go where you expect them to go. And yeah, it's kind of a weird. And also, again, the 2nd episode of the 2020 series is just our war game, but with not as good animation. So that's kind of frustrating. I would say that if you want to get into Digimon Adventure, watch our war game at the very least, or watch Summer Wars, definitely.
Yeah. Just this one and Our War Games together are a great couple movies. And then if you're like, I like this world, keep going with Digimon. Watch the original series or the reboot.
You have 20 years of catching up to do. So thanks again to Devin for being on the show and contributing so much.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Devin.
Devin, is there anything you want to promote personally that you might enjoy, even if you don't do it yourself? We have some of our patrons come on here and say, well, I like this podcast too, or I like this Twitter account.
So I'm going to do what I did last time and plug a tabletop RPG, actually, and one that's relevant to this discussion here. It's a tabletop game called Monsters and Other Childish Things. It's actually my favorite tabletop game of all time, and it is, just about being a little kid and having a pet Cthulhu monster that can hide and take different forms. You have to kind of keep them out of the eyes of your parents and the adults that might try to exploit them for their own good. And the best thing that I'll say about Monsters and Other Childish Things is that it is very well written. It's very funny to just sit down and read it. It's almost like Calvin and Hobbes in how clever the dialogue is. And that's available on Drive-Thru RPG. Just go there and type in Monsters and Other Childish Things, and you can find the book just readily available.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to check that one out. And as always, yes, Devin, thank you so much.
So thanks again to Devin for being one of our top tier patrons. And if you want to be cool like Devin and also, help support our show, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Sign up there for $5 a month. You get all these podcasts 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, then also access to everything behind the $5 paywall. That includes all of our limited miniseries, the most recent of which was Talking Futurama Season 2, Part 2. That wrapped up in the end of 2020, and very soon we'll be announcing what our miniseries for spring of 2021 will be. Who knows what it'll be, but it'll be a lot of fun new episodes, only that you can get behind the paywall at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, along with all of our other miniseries and over 100 plus bonus podcasts for you to listen to. If you've never been part of the Patreon before and you like what we do, there is so much that you have not heard, and you get it all instantly the second you sign up. But if you sign up for $10 a month, you get all the $5 stuff and also access to one mega long podcast once a month, only for patrons of that level or higher. And what is that, Henry?
Bob is talking about the What a Cartoon movie podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast but wish it was twice as long and about an animated feature-length film, this was a feature film we talked about today, but not feature-length. You can hear that at the $10 level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. We have a giant back catalog, over 2 years of What a Cartoon movies, and we release a new one each month. We're doing this pretty far in advance, so I don't know which one you just heard, but previous ones that I think you'll really enjoy, our most recent ones included Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island and Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, and there's a huge back catalog as well, especially if you loved all of our talk about anime in here. We have many anime classics like Akira, The Castle of Cagliostro, Kiki's Delivery Service, tons more in the back catalog, so please check all of those out. Hear all of them for just $10 a month at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
So I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast is Retronauts. That's a classic gaming podcast about old video games. You can find that wherever you find podcasts, or go to patreon.com/Retronauts. Sign up there for 2 bonus episodes every month. Again, that is patreon.com/Retronauts. Henry, what about you?
I'm Henry Gilbert, and you should follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG. I don't know what I'm tweeting about in 2021, but I'm sure I'm having a good time. You also should follow on Twitter the official account of Talking Simpsons, this podcast network, at Talk Simpsons Pod. At Talk Simpsons Pod on Twitter keeps you up to date whenever new stuff goes live on our free feeds, on the Patreons for Talking Simpsons or What a Cartoon, and the same for any new polls or other stuff going on. You'll stay in the loop if you follow at Talk Simpsons Pod on Twitter.
Thanks so much for joining us, folks. We'll see you next time for the Venture Brothers episode, What Color is Your Clean Suit? And we'll see you then.
疲れた蝶になって一途な風に乗ってどこまでも君に会いに行こう曖昧な言葉って意外に便利だって叫んでる悲壮に聞きながら何がこの街に響くのだろうだけど期待してても仕方ない無限大な夢の後のやるせないのだけじゃそうはさ常識外れも悪くはないから清楚なイメージを染めたぎこちない翼でもきっと飛べるさそうになるけど静止化したイメージだらけの頼りない翼でもきっと飛べるさ Oh yeah 無限大な夢の後のやるせない世の中じゃそうはさ常識外れも悪くはないから清楚なイメージを染めたぎこちない翼でもきっと飛べるぜ Oh my
love. 92% of households that start the year with Peloton are still active a year later.
92% because of a bike?
not just bikes. We also make treadmills and rowers.
Oh, let me guess, for elite athletes only, right?
Nope. It doesn't matter if you're an avid exerciser or new to working out. Peloton can help you achieve your fitness goals. 92% stick with it. So can you. Try Peloton bikes, tread, or row risk-free with a 30-day home trial. New members only. Not available in remote locations. See additional terms at onepeloton.com/home-trial.